Chapter 1977. As a result, after messing around for an entire night, Hestia still did not get anything out of Noah. After all, if Noah told Hestia that his ability points had been stripped away for some reason, she would definitely suffer the most serious blow and be unable to recover from it. It couldn't be helped. The ability points carved by the gods were equivalent to belonging to a member of a clan. It told everyone that they belonged to the clan. In Hestia's opinion, Noah's ability points being stripped away was the same as leaving one's clan. In addition, Noah's ability points were carved by Hestia herself. Noah himself was the first member of Hestia's clan and the family member that she valued the most. If she knew that Noah's ability points had been stripped away, even if it was only temporary, it would definitely be a blow to her. Ever since the war game with Apollo's minions, Hestia's possessiveness towards Noah had risen to the extreme. She would never allow any main god to touch Noah. Normally, she would guard against gods as if they were wolves. It could be seen how important Noah was to Hestia. And now, the ability value that I had personally engraved on Noah had been stripped away. Noah no longer had the favor that I had given him. He was now considered free. Regardless of the reason, this fact alone would make Hestia cry, wouldn't it? Therefore, Noah really could not tell Hestia the truth. He could only endure Hestia's endless pestering while wailing under the various intimate touches of the young goddess. In the end, he was freed by Baal and Lily. However, it didn't take long for a new problem to arise. That was, the problem of accommodation. It should be noted that there were only 3 rooms in Hestia's clan's base camp. After Lily moved in, an emergency had been declared for the room. However, at that time, Noah was ready to leave, so he gave his room to Lily. Now that Noah had returned, the problem of the room arose once again. Noah did not mind sleeping on the sofa in the living room. However, whether it was Hestia, Baal, or Lily, none of them agreed to this matter. Therefore, after some arguments, Hestia announced in the most willful manner, "Noah will stay in my room. No one is allowed to object." Under the orders of the overlord, Baal and Lily compromised. As for Noah, there was only one thought in his mind. It's over. That night, Noah was hugged tightly by Hestia, and she also rubbed against him fiercely for the entire night. Noah almost had a nefarious desire. If it wasn't for the fact that Noah knew that Ashtar, Athena, Orpheus, and Lilith were still living in his gift card, and that the 4 girls could peek into the outside world at any time and see what he was doing, Noah wasn't sure if he could endure it for the entire night. Not to mention, the goddess of wisdom seemed to have seen through Noah's heart. When Hestia gave Noah all kinds of benefits, she spoke to Noah in such a way that it was as if she had seen through Noah's heart. She is like me. She is famous for being a virgin goddess. She has always maintained her purity. Do you want to blaspheme such a goddess while she is sleeping? Is she my fated person? This sentence made Noah completely lose his temper. That night, Noah couldn't sleep without any suspense. Moreover, he would probably continue to have insomnia for the rest of the night. In this regard, Noah could only leave this sentence in the endless night. What kind of sin have I committed? The next day, as soon as the sun rose, Noah came out of Hestia's room. Leader. Lord Noah. In the living room, Baal and Lily, who were tidying up their equipment, were quite surprised to see Noah coming out of the room. There was no other reason other than the fact that Noah looked so tired that he almost had 2 dark circles around his eyes. In the hearts of Baal and Lily, Noah had always been a great existence. He was like a hero and a brave man. He could even destroy Apollo's family with his own strength. Even LV-7, who was known as Orly's ultimate weapon, couldn't do anything to him. He was so strong that he was like a god. Therefore, when they saw Noah's haggard face, Baal and Lily were really shocked. Noah didn't know that his appearance had frightened them. He yawned and greeted Baal and Lily. Good morning, both of you. Good. Good morning, Bell replied stupidly before he realized what was going on. No, it's not the time to say good morning. Leader, what happened? What's going on? Noah was slightly startled and asked curiously. Nothing. Why did you suddenly say that? Because Lord Noah looks very tired, Lily said cautiously. Did he not have enough rest? Then, Lord Noah, it's best for you to take a rest. Yes. Bell nodded. Leader, you just came back from the deep zone. You should rest more. No need, Noah said with a wry smile. Anyway, I definitely can't rest. Can't rest? Bell and Lily were taken aback, and they were extremely puzzled. Why can't he rest? Did something really happen? Bell and Lily both thought so. However, before the two of them had the chance to think too much, Noah spoke lazily. Are you going to the dungeon? Yes, Lily replied. Lily and Lord Bell usually enter the dungeon at this time. Is that so? Noah nodded and continued asking. Then, which level are you going to today? Same as yesterday. We're going to walk around level 12, Bell said dejectedly. Actually, I want to go to level 13, don't even think about it, Lord Bell, Lily interrupted without hesitation. Starting from the 13th floor is the middle floor. In the division of the guild, it is a floor that only LV2 high-level adventurers can explore. Although Lord Bell is already considered to be outstanding in LV1, after all, he is still LV1 and cannot take risks. But, isn't there Lily? Bell asked. If there's a team, even level 1 adventurers can go to the middle zone, right? Indeed, if there's a team, we can go to the middle zone. Lily sighed. But Lord Bale, please think about it carefully. Our team only has 2 people, and only Lord Bale has sufficient combat power. Lily is only a support, and her combat power is not up to par. It is too dangerous for us to challenge the middle class in our current situation. Bell naturally understood Lily's meaning, but he didn't know what to say and lowered his head. Although it wasn't like before, where he wanted to seek encounters in the dungeon all day long, as an adventurer, he definitely wanted to challenge the lower zone. Unfortunately, the middle zone was different from the upper zone. Starting from the middle zone, the monster's strength would not only increase to a level that was extremely dangerous for level 1 adventurers, but the frequency of monsters' appearance would also increase greatly. With Bell's current strength, if he went to the middle zone, even with Lily's support, he would definitely die. Lily doesn't want to stop Lord Bell like this, but it's really not suitable to go to the middle zone at the moment. Even if Lord Bell rose to level 2, Lily would still stop him. Lily said very seriously. Lily had the honor of going to the 17th floor with Lord Noah, so Lily knows how terrible the monsters in the middle zone are. Unless Lord Bell can find other trustworthy teammates, it's too dangerous to go to the middle zone now. Teammates? Bell was a little dejected. At this moment, Noah spoke. In that case, let me be your teammate. Bell and Lily first made a sound of disbelief, and when they understood Noah's meaning, even their eyes widened. Leader, Lord Noah, will be our teammate. Don't make a fuss, okay? Noah was speechless. No matter what, we are all partners of the same clan. Is it strange to go to the maze together? Or do you not trust me? No. There's no such thing. Bell's head shook like a rattle drum, and Lily quickly said. It's just that Lord Noah has just returned, and he should have a good rest. It's a waste of talent to go to the dungeon with us. No, it's a waste of talent. Whether it's a waste of talent or not, it should be up to me, not you, Noah said snappily. Do you think I'm going to take care of you? Bell and Lily suddenly looked at each other and said in unison. Isn't that so? Suddenly, Noah choked on his words. Okay, maybe more or less, but I'm not going to escort you on a whim. I don't intend to spoil you to this extent. Noah rolled his eyes. Are you going or not? At that moment, Belle and Lily could only nod helplessly. Chapter 1978. In the central square of the labyrinth city, Olalai. Noah and Bale were on standby in the square surrounding the white wall tower that reached the sky. Looking at the sleepy Noah standing in front of the Tower of Babel and yawning incessantly, the surrounding adventurers who were preparing to enter the dungeon whispered to each other. That's the tyrant, right? He looks more lazy in real life than in the live broadcast of the war games. What do you know? Maybe to him, entering the dungeon is such an easy thing to do. Well, to the tyrant, other than the deeper levels, the upper, middle, and even lower levels are all very easy, right? In other words, he doesn't intend to enter the deeper levels today, right? After all, he just came back yesterday. The adventurers were whispering to each other as they looked at Noah in awe. Noah, who was used to it, did not care about it, but Bale felt a little uncomfortable. I feel so much pressure standing next to the leader. One was a super famous person that even LV5 and LV6 adventurers could only look up to. The other was a rookie LV1 adventurer who had not leveled up yet. How could the adventurers not feel pressured when the two of them stood next to each other and were surrounded by people who were whispering to each other? At least, Bale felt a little pain in his stomach. Under such circumstances, Bale fully realized how amazing the people around him were. I don't know when I can be like the leader and Miss Wallenstein, who are respected by everyone. While Bale was thinking about this, the surrounding people started to talk about him. Who's that white-haired brat next to him? He seems to be from the same clan as the tyrant. Is he planning to enter the dungeon with the tyrant? No wonder the tyrant looks bored. He's here to bring a newbie. I'm so envious. If I had the tyrant to bring me, I would have leveled up to LV2. Yeah, clearly hearing the discussions around him and bearing the envious gazes of the people around him, Bale felt a pang of fear in his heart. As a rookie LV1 adventurer, it was really a rare thing for Belle to be looked at with such envious eyes. Although sometimes, some LV1 adventurers would look at Belle with envious eyes, Belle knew that it was not for him, but for his equipment. Don't forget that back then, Noah had personally equipped Bale with a set of equipment that was too extravagant for a newbie adventurer. There was even a Tier 3 weapon that only a Tier 3 adventurer could possess. Therefore, in the past, Bale could occasionally see some LV1 adventurers looking at the equipment on his body with envious eyes, and secretly scolding him for wasting God's gift and joining a good clan. Frankly speaking, Bale had the same idea in the beginning. Hence, Bale put an extra effort in exploring the dungeon, hoping that he could become an adventurer worthy of his equipment. Now, the envy of the people around him was no longer directed at Bale's equipment, but at him. Naturally, Bale began to feel uncomfortable. So, Bale couldn't help but speak. Why isn't Lily back yet? Do you think it's easy to prepare all the items? Noah yawned and replied. You originally planned to stop at the 12th floor, so the elixirs and items you prepared were all low level. Lily suddenly left halfway to prepare more elixirs and items, in case she needed them in the lower floors. Is that so? Bale touched his head in confusion. I feel that with the leader here, those elixirs and items may not be of use. You're wrong. Noah glanced at Bale. The battle still needs to be done by you, otherwise, how can you gain experience points? Today, Noah came with Bale to see if there was a chance to give Bale a push to level up to LV2. If he could, after Noah, Bale would become the second adventurer to level up to LV2 in only 1 month, and he would become famous from then on. Back then, Noah took a month to not only level up to LV2, but he also leveled up to LV3. Before leaving, he also leveled up to become a LV4 adventurer. His speed was so fast that it was boundless. However, the strength shown by Noah was not proportional to his level at all. His real strength was far higher than his level. Outsiders did not believe that Noah was a newcomer at all. The guild had Noah's information, but it was filled in when they registered. As a result, even the staff cast a suspicious look at Noah. Obviously, they did not believe it. If there was a genius who took only 1 month to level up to LV2 in Hestia's clan, then no one would think that Hestia was just lucky to pick up a treasure. Noah just wanted to tell everyone that Hestia was also qualified to be the main god of a clan. Under such circumstances, Noah and Baal waited for about half an hour. In the end, instead of Lily, another group of acquaintances appeared. Little brother. Accompanied by such a voice, in the distance, an Amazon girl with wheat-colored skin waved enthusiastically in the direction of Noah. Beside the Amazon girl with wheat-colored skin, there were 3 other people. One was an Amazon girl with wheat-colored skin. A very pure elven girl. There was also a young swordswoman with light golden hair that reached her waist. She had golden hair and golden eyes. Surprisingly, they were Tiona, and Raphia of Loki's clan. As well as Ace, who was the first to welcome Noah's return yesterday and chatted with Noah for a whole afternoon. You. Noah looked at the girls of Loki's clan in a daze. You're here too. Miss Wallenstein. Baal's face quickly turned red when he saw Aid. He hurriedly hid behind Noah. Unfortunately, the girls of Loki's clan didn't care about Baal at all and ran straight to Noah. Long time no see, little brother. Tiona hugged Noah's arm as if she was very happy. As expected, you came to the dungeon today too. When Ace said you were coming back, we thought we would meet you today. Tiona pursed her lips and smiled. After all, we've always been fated to meet each other. And every time I meet you, it's definitely not a good thing. Noah let out a sigh and looked at Ace, who had been standing there quietly. His voice softened a little. Didn't you say yesterday that Riveria allowed you to practice crush magic in the morning? I thought you would definitely come in the afternoon. I came with Tiona today. Ace's expression was as emotionless as usual, but her eyes were much gentler than usual. I didn't want to come so early. Just like what Tiona said, I felt like I would meet little brother today, so I called Ace and Leafy along, Tiona said with a smile. And we have to earn some money to repay the debt for the custom-made weapons. Custom-made weapons. Noah immediately understood. I see. Are you talking about the monsters that could dissolve weapons during the previous expedition? That's right. Our weapons were dissolved by those despicable monsters, Tiona said with a sigh. In the end, we had to borrow money for the custom-made weapons, except for Leafia. How unlucky. In other words, you intend to enter the dungeon to repay the debt. Noah nodded and looked at Leafia in confusion. Then why are you here? I see. Wait. Why do you suddenly understand? Leafia widened her eyes. Didn't you want to ask why I'm here? After all, Leafia was a magic shooter who specialized in magic. Unlike Ace and the others, she didn't need to use weapons at the front line. She shouldn't need to borrow money for the custom-made weapons. It wasn't surprising that Noah wanted to ask why the elf girl was here. However, halfway through the question, Noah guessed the reason. As for you, you must have come because Ace is here, right? Noah looked at Leafia with a faint smile. Isn't that so? Leafia was at a loss for words. Tiona couldn't help but laugh out loud. At this moment, Ace asked Noah tentatively. Do you want to go down together? Of course, she was referring to entering the dungeon. Hearing this, Noah said. I have 2 newbies here. It might take a lot of time. It's okay, Ace answered simply. We only plan to go to the 18th floor today. Noah pondered for a moment and nodded. However, Noah did not expect that this nod would indeed confirm what he had said before. Nothing good would come out of meeting Loki's family. Chapter 1979. In the fog-filled underground city, a roar that caused the air to tremble slightly resounded. This was the 12th floor of the underground city. On this floor, shrouded in heavy fog, a fierce battle was going on. Baal, holding a dagger, was like an arrow leaving the bow. He stomped on the ground and rushed towards the group of orcs in front of him. It was a group of huge orcs with pig heads and beast bodies. There were not many of them, about a dozen or so. However, these dozen or so orcs were definitely not something a LV-1 adventurer could deal with. However, Baal rushed forward without fear. The dagger in his hand cut through the air again and again, bringing with it a cold blade light, passing through the fat bodies of the orcs. Poochie poochie poochie. Along with the sound of ripping silk, the cold blade light easily cut open the fat body of the half-beast man. It cut open the thick flesh and peeled open the tough fur, causing numerous hideous wounds to appear on the half-beast man's body, causing bursts of blood to spurt out. The orcs all roared in pain, but after being injured, they became even more violent. Holding a stick in their hands, as if they had fallen into madness, they fiercely swung it at the adventurer who attacked them. However, before that, Baal had already relied on his extraordinary speed to escape like a rabbit, causing the clubs that were swinging towards him to smash heavily onto the ground, causing a series of muffled sounds and sand to fly everywhere. Baal wandered in the flying sand at an impressive speed. His figure was like lightning. Every time he rushed in front of the orcs, he would leave a bloody wound on the huge bodies of the orcs, causing the orcs' painful howls to resound for a long time. In the distance, Noah and a group of girls from Loki's clan watched this scene leisurely, constantly expressing their own thoughts. What fast movements! That little brother seems to be very good at dealing with heavy opponents. Tiona, he's really fast, although he's far from being as fast as Bert, but Bert is a werewolf who's good at speed, and he's also a LV-5 adventurer. I guess he wasn't as fast as Bert when he was LV-1, right? Tiona, however, compared to that little brother named Baal, that little guy named Lily is really powerful. Tiona, yeah, I'm surprised. Tiona, under the words of the Amazon twins, everyone looked at the corner some distance away from the front line. Lily, who was carrying a backpack that was twice as big as her body, stood there. As a supporter with little fighting power, it's not strange for her to be far away from the front line. However, Lily didn't just stand there. Instead, she raised her hand with a serious face, using the crossbow equipped on her arm as a weapon, constantly pulling the bowstring, and shooting arrows. Both Tiona and Tiona were confused when they saw Lily's actions at first. This was because orcs were considered to be one of the highest level monsters on the 1st to 12th floors. Although their huge size and fat body made their movements clumsy, they were famous for their monstrous strength and thick fur. They weren't characters that could be killed by mere bows and arrows. Therefore, the twin Amazon sisters didn't know the purpose of Lily holding a crossbow and shooting in the corner at first. It wasn't until a while later that their eyes lit up. They saw that the arrows shot by Lily were not aimed at the orcs, but at the ground. The arrows were shot one after another on the ground, but it just happened to stop the group of orcs who intended to attack from behind Baal, giving Baal a chance to breathe. After he reacted, he immediately brandished his sword and cut the bodies of the orcs. Almost at the same time, Lily's arrows were shot again, but this time, they didn't land on the ground. Instead, they were aimed at the orcs who were cut by Baal's short sword. The sharp arrows seemed to have eyes as they pierced into the open wounds of the half-blood beast men. The half-blood beast men howled in pain and even slowed down their attacks. Knowing that ordinary arrows would not be able to harm the thick-skinned orcs, Lily had been supporting Baal in such a way, making use of every opportunity she had. If it weren't for Miss Supporter's help, that white-haired young man wouldn't have been able to kill so many orcs so easily, right? Tiona had a whole new level of respect for Lily. I didn't notice that little human Miss Supporter at first. I didn't expect her to be so powerful. Indeed, she has amazing insight and great judgment. Seems like she's a think tank. Tiona began to look at Lily in the eye. She's similar to Leader. However, apart from being smart, Leader's combat strength is also flawless. Naturally, Leafia heard the conversation between Tiona and Tiona as well. Besides, when Lily began to play a role, Leafia was the one who observed Lily's performance the most. Though her level is lower than mine and her combat strength is weak, Miss Lily is the real professional supporter. I have to learn from her. Leafia was a level 3 magic shooter. This level was already considered very high when more than half of the people in Eulalia were only at LV1 on average. However, Leafia was only a newbie in the group of level 1 adventurers in Loki's clan. Although she was considered to be Riveria's successor and often acted with level 1 adventurers such as Ace, Tiona, and Tiona, when the team entered the dungeon, Leafia would usually accompany them as a supporter and learn from the combat methods of her seniors. In this way, she could more or less learn from Lily's method of support, which would allow Leafia, who was usually not very useful, to be of some use. Moreover, she would be of greater use than Lily. After all, Miss Lily is only using ordinary bows and arrows, while I'm using magic. My support will definitely be greater. With that thought, Leafia observed Lily's actions very seriously. On the other hand, Noah and Ace stayed at the back of the team and chatted. From time to time, they would glance at Bale, who was fighting with the orcs, and Lily, who was providing support. Seeing Noah and Ace like this, Tiona and Tiona also whispered to each other. Hey, Tiona, don't you think Big Brother and Ace are much closer than before? Tiona, even the atmosphere has changed. Seems like a lot of things have happened that we don't know about. Tiona, don't tell me that the two of them have already done that. Tiona, it's possible. If Loki knew about this, he would most likely explode. Tiona, Ace is so cunning. She actually found such a good man in secret. Tiona, I'll have to interrogate her properly when we get back. Tiona, the two sisters gathered together and snickered. Leafia, who was studying seriously at the side, almost lost her train of thought. She glared fiercely at Noah. Noah, who was chatting with Ace, felt a chill run down his spine. His expression stiffened. Ace tilted her head and asked in confusion. What's wrong? Nothing. Noah scratched his cheek and spread his hands helplessly. I'm just feeling a little emotional about your popularity. Popularity? Ace was even more confused. Forget it. Noah stretched out his hand and patted Ace's head amusedly. You won't understand even if I tell you. Ace's face was instantly filled with confusion, but when Noah patted her head, her pretty face couldn't help but show a hint of shyness. Ah! At the same time, a few screams rang out. Over there. Leafia finally couldn't stand it anymore. Put your hand down. Big Brother and Ace are really together. Tiona said excitedly. I found out. When did this happen? Tyogni's face was filled with curiosity. You'll have to explain it later. At the same time, Bale, who was fighting with the orc, was almost hit by a club. Lily's attention was also distracted, causing the originally solemn scene to become chaotic. Noah could only smile bitterly at this. What's going on? Chapter 1980. After spending about 10 minutes, Belle and Lily finally dealt with a group of orcs in the chaos and arrived before Noah. Lord Noah, Lily grumbled. Please don't distract Lily and the others while flirting with the girls, all right? Bale didn't say anything when Lily grumbled, but he looked at Noah with resentment and envy. What's there to be envious of? Envious of the intimate interaction between Noah and AIC. Bale blushed as he looked at AIC, who was standing beside Noah with her head tilted. She didn't seem to understand the current situation. It had to be said that Bale's bashful appearance really gave people goosebumps. Ever since he decided to enter the underground city with the girls from Loki's clan, Bale had been bashful all the way. When he wasn't fighting, he would hide at the back and peek at Ike's. This made Leafia want to raise her wand and blast a fireball at Bale's face countless times. It wasn't because Leafia was overprotective of AIC. Although this was more or less a factor, the main reason why Leafia had such an impulse was that Bale, a grown man, was actually acting coy like a young girl in love. She really couldn't help but want to beat him up. If it wasn't for the fact that Bale would get serious once he entered battle mode, perhaps even Leafia, Tiona and Tyne wouldn't be able to stand it. Of course, Noah wasn't surprised. After all, Bale was someone who looked forward to meeting in the underground city. Undoubtedly, Bale was a new adventurer who had just received a favor and wanted to go to the lower floors of the underground city to flirt with girls. Now, Bale was undoubtedly much better. That was why Noah just smiled. Looking at Noah's amused expression, Tiona snickered, while Rafia puffed up her cheeks and sulked. Only Ace still didn't understand what was going on. There was a question mark hanging over her head. Alright, let's stop joking around. Lily sighed and then became serious. So then, Sir Noah, can you tell Lily what you plan to do next? Bale also focused his attention. If it were any other day, Bale and Lily would start exploring this floor, killing monsters, earning magic stones, and working hard for a day. But today, since Noah was leading the team, he definitely didn't want to spend time on the 12th floor. Bale and Lily were already prepared. Ready to enter the lower floors. In fact, Noah wasn't here to watch Bale and Lily earn magic stones. Steadily. Since the Loki's family members intend to head to the 18th floor, let's set that as our goal. Sure enough, Noah immediately said something shocking. But, starting from the 13th floor, all the way to the 18th floor, you'll be responsible for defeating all the monsters along the way, Bale. WH. What? Lily was taken aback. Me. Me alone. Bale was also shocked. Not to mention Lily and Bale, even AIC and the others were stunned and looked at each other. Little brother, isn't this a bit too much? Tiona couldn't help but ask. Your junior is only LV1. It's already very dangerous for him to enter the 13th floor. It's simply impossible for him to attack from the 13th floor to the 18th floor alone. Yeah. Tyne nodded. If you want to attack all the way to the 18th floor, you should at least form a LV2 team of 3 to guarantee success. Otherwise, it's too dangerous. Although AIC and Leafia didn't say anything, they seemed to have the same opinion. In this regard, Noah just smiled. Don't worry, since I said so, I naturally have my own ideas. Let's go to the 13th floor first. Hearing this, the girls who knew that Noah had many magical means began to be curious. This time, what kind of means will Noah show? Is this the 13th floor? Bale gripped his dagger tightly as he scanned his surroundings. This is a completely different floor from the foggy 12th floor. If the 12th floor is described as a white space, then the 13th floor is a black space. This is like the inside of a cave, the space is extremely dark. Rocks stand up around. The walls, floor, and ceiling are all dark rock plates, with some moist air floating around. An almost bottomless passage extends to the front. The road has no curves, but there is no end to it at all, as if it can lead people to hell. In addition, in the corners of the walls, there are caves like wells leading to the bottom, which look like traps. Those vertical caves can actually lead to the next floor. In the middle level, there are many caves like this. Therefore, for those skilled adventurers, using these caves to directly ignore the monsters wreaking havoc in the floors, they can rush to the next floor with the fastest speed. For adventurers who had just reached the middle level of the dungeon, it was a well-deserved trap. Because these caves can only go down, but not up. Unless one can fly, or have some means of leaping on roofs and walls, otherwise, once one falls down, one will be surrounded by the monsters of the 14th floor before even finishing the 13th floor. That is definitely a narrow escape. In addition, from this floor onwards, the monsters will begin to have some special abilities, such as a monster called the Hellhound that can spit out scorching flames to attack from a distance. The frequency of monsters appearing is also much higher than the upper level. There will be dozens of monsters swarming out at the same time. If one is not vigilant, only death will await. Not only Bale, but even Lily, who had been to the 17th floor with Noah, was on high alert when she thought of the things that she had to pay attention to. Compared to Bale and Lily, Noah, Ace, Tiona, Tyogni, and even Leafia look relaxed, not taking the dangers of this floor seriously. Under such circumstances, Noah takes a step forward and raises his hand. Clank! A dazzling light flashed, causing everyone present to subconsciously close their eyes. After the flash of light dimmed, everyone opened their eyes again, and the scene that appeared in front of them stunned them. Because one of Noah's arms is actually covered by a ferocious crimson hand that looks like a dragon's claw, imprinted in everyone's eyes. What's that? Everyone was puzzled. However, without giving them too much time to be puzzled, Noah grasped the hand tightly. Boost! A clear but deep voice sounded, causing the jade on the back of the hand to flash, giving everyone a fright. Noah, on the other hand, turned his head and looked ahead. Bale, stop daydreaming, get ready for battle. Ha! Bale let out a sound of disbelief, and then he finally noticed. In front of him, black hellhounds with a pitch-black luster slowly walked out of the shadows, looking over with ruthless and ferocious eyes. Hellhounds. Bale's voice began to change. That's right, those are the monsters that appeared from the 13th floor onwards, the hellhounds that can spit out scorching flames. Ace, Tiona, Tyogni, and Leafia all placed their hands on their weapons when they saw the hellhounds lined up in a row with red flames rising and falling from their mouths. However, at this moment, Noah pressed his hand that was equipped with the ferocious hand on Bale's shoulder. Transfer. Bale felt it when he heard this voice. He felt a powerful force surging out of his body. This. Bale was stunned. In response, Noah just pushed Bale forward. Go! Bale reacted when he heard this, and his eyes suddenly focused. Bang! In the next moment, Bale stomped on the ground and shot toward the group of hellhounds at an astonishing speed. His speed had long surpassed that of a LV-1 adventurer. Chapter 1981. At this moment, not only Lily, but even the girls from Loki's clan were stunned. Whoosh! Bale shot towards a Cerberus at a speed that caused the entire cavern to reverberate with faint sonic booms. The Cerberus was still trying to suppress the flames in its mouth. Before it could react, Bale's dagger had already slashed across. Slash! The crisp sound of flesh being torn apart sounded. The sharp dagger cut through the Cerberus's neck, cut through the tough flesh, and came out from the back of the Cerberus' neck without any obstruction. Slap! The Cerberus head fell to the ground, rolled a few times, and scattered into a pile of ashes. Bale, who was still in the posture of wielding his dagger, was stunned. Lily, who was about to raise her crossbow to support, was stunned. Ace was stunned. Even the three girls, Tyone and Leafia, were stunned, and their eyes widened slightly. Noah was the only one who spoke calmly. Don't be in a daze. Continue to kill. Yes. Bale couldn't care less. His figure turned into a gust of wind, and he rushed toward the Cerberus. Slash! 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 Chaotic tearing sounds echoed in the dark and damp cave, sounding rhythmically. Every time the sound sounded, a burst of red blood would splash into the sky, and a Cerberus corpse would fall to the ground. Undoubtedly, even LV-2 adventurers had to be wary of the middle-level monsters, but at this moment, LV-1 adventurer killed them one by one as if they were vegetables. In less than 10 seconds, more than a dozen Cerberus fell to the ground. Blood stained the ground, and the cave returned to silence. Baal, who was standing in the middle of a pile of Cerberus corpses, stared blankly at the Cerberus corpses, and he was at a loss. Did I do this? Not to mention Baal, even the group of level 1 adventurers doubted their eyes. It wasn't difficult for Ace, Tiny, and Tiny to kill a group of level 13 Cerberus as if they were vegetables. If he wanted to do the same thing, it would be a piece of cake. However, if it was a LV-1 adventurer, it would be different. Even a LV-2 can't be that straightforward, right? Tyagni muttered. What's going on? In the next second, everyone turned their heads and focused their gazes on Noah. No. To be more precise, it was concentrated on the ferocious crimson gauntlet on Noah's arm. At this moment, even a fool could understand. The reason why Baal had suddenly become so strong was all because of the gauntlet. Under the gaze of everyone present, Noah smiled slightly and raised his arm equipped with the gauntlet in front of him. It's called Red Dragon Emperor's Boosted Gear. As a weapon, its performance is almost negligible, but it has a powerful ability. It can double the power every 10 seconds, and the power can be transferred to other individuals. The duration of the effect depends on the number of times it is doubled. Hearing this sentence, how could everyone not understand? The reason why Baal suddenly became strong was because Noah increased his power. It can double the power every 10 seconds. Everyone felt dizzy. Doesn't that mean that as long as you have this gauntlet, let alone a LV-5 adventurer, even a LV-6 or LV-7 adventurer can compete with it? Moreover, if there is no limit to the doubling, how strong will you become in the end? Stronger than a god? No. Impossible. Leafio was really shaken. How can such a tool exist? Isn't this too unfair? Tiny, Tyagni, Lily, and Baal also looked at each other, and for a moment, they were speechless. Only Ace stared closely at Noah's gauntlet, and her eyes could no longer move away. Double the power every 10 seconds. Such an ability was like a divine artifact that she had been yearning for in her dreams since she was constantly pursuing power. Clearly knowing everyone's thoughts, Noah curled his lips. Okay, don't be surprised. Although the ability is very powerful, it is not as terrifying as you think. Not to mention the problem of maintaining the doubled power, the number of times it can be doubled according to each person's strength and weakness. Simply put, this ability can indeed be infinitely strengthened, but the target who can bear the doubled power has its own limit. It can't really be infinitely strengthened. Even so, it's quite amazing, right? Not to mention other things, as long as the power can be doubled once or twice, it is not impossible to challenge a higher level. Isn't this enough to surprise people? As if seeing through everyone's thoughts, Noah suddenly smiled. Yes, even if there is a limit to the strengthening, this ability can easily allow people to challenge a higher level, and challenging a higher level is a great achievement. When Noah said this, everyone suddenly quivered. Yes. Challenging a higher level is a great achievement. Then doesn't that mean? Lily's voice trembled a little. As long as you have this power, then anyone can level up. It varies from person to person, right? If the possibility is too small, you can't level up, right? Noah shrugged and looked at Belle, who was stunned there. However, with this ability, it won't be a problem for you to attack all the way to the 18th floor. However, you, LV-1, attacked the 18th floor alone. If you still can't level up, then even I won't believe it. Level up. Belle was stunned. Me? Level up? Don't doubt it, it's you, Noah said in a bad mood. If it's not to help you level up, why do you think I'm here? Belle was at a loss. I can level up too. This huge meat pie fell just like that, and it really knocked Belle out. At this time, the rest of the people also reacted. Too amazing. Tiona abruptly threw her arms around Noah, giggling and jumping up and down as she yelled. Please be sure to help me too. I want to level up too. I want to level up too. Tiona could not help but hug Noah's other arm, squeezing her full upper body directly on it, and was a little excited. I've been stuck at LV5 for a long time, and I've long wanted to level up to LV6. Leafia and Lily did not say anything, but their eyes were also full of hope when they looked at Noah. AIC directly raised her hand and stared straight at Noah. I want to. Noah almost spurted out a mouthful of blood. What do you mean by, I want to? Please don't say it's so easily misunderstood. At that moment, Noah let out a bitter laugh. Ace, Tiona, and Tiona are all level 1 adventurers above level 5. If they want to level up, it's almost impossible for them to do so without challenging the floor master. Not to mention, Ace is level 6. If they want to level up, they have to accumulate a lot of EXP. Only Leafia and Lily have it easier, but it can't be done without a plan. Today, I've only prepared a plan for Bale's level up, so we'll talk about you guys later. Sigh. Tiona said in dissatisfaction. Why is it like this? Tyogni, Leafia, and Lily were also disappointed. AIC looked even more dejected, as if she could cry at any time, which made her look very pitiful. Only Belle looked flattered and did not know what to do at all. Alright, don't look like your parents are dead. You're all envied in the eyes of others, and you still want others to take care of you. Noah only felt at a loss of whether to laugh or cry. Besides, it's not like there's no chance, we'll talk about it later. Hearing this, everyone regained some of their spirits. They looked like children who would be dejected if they did not have candy, but happy if they had candy. It was laughable. All in all, today is your special day, Belle. Noah patted Belle's shoulder. I've already spent so much effort to help you conquer, don't let me down, okay? Hearing this, Belle opened his mouth, but did not say a word. He just nodded his head heavily. I know, leader, I won't let you down. Noah smiled. Alright, let's hurry. Noah looked around at everyone. Let's try to reach the 18th floor before dark. Everyone nodded in agreement. Chapter 1982. Just like what Noah had said, the next floor was Bale's. Undoubtedly, the middle floor from the 13th floor was not a floor that a LV1 adventurer could enter at will, but in the end, it became Bale's slaughterhouse. No matter what kind of monsters appeared, Noah, Ace, Tiona, Tyan, Leafia, and even Lily just stayed behind and did not make a move from beginning to end, allowing Bale to rush through like a thunderstorm and leisurely follow him. When a monster appeared, Noah would directly activate the ability of the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear, multiplying Bale's strength to the limit. Then, Belle would directly rush over and continue to fight, cutting down the monsters one by one. He would absorb the experience points that were too large for a LV1 adventurer at a speed that was close to the limit. The middle floor was originally different from the upper floor, the frequency of monsters appearing was extremely high. Therefore, Bale almost did not stop to rest, and was constantly fighting. Even if his stamina was exhausted, he would immediately drink a bottle of stamina recovery elixir and continue to rush forward. Originally, recovery items like elixirs were only used as a last resort. Using elixirs to increase the speed of leveling like Bale was simply too extravagant. At least, Lily, who had suffered for almost half of her life because of money, was distressed by such a wasteful way of spending money, and she almost cried. Those were elixirs. Even the lowest grade of stamina recovery elixir required 500 Varus worth of items. Normally, a family would only need 100 Varus to eat a full meal. These 500 Varus worth of stamina recovery elixirs would be consumed bottle by bottle. Even if one bottle was consumed every half an hour and maintained for 4 to 5 hours, that would still consume 2 to 3,000 Varus. Normally, they would be used to save lives, but now they were being squandered like this. It was too distressing. These were the lowest grade elixirs, and higher grade elixirs were many times more expensive. Now, the elixir that Baal was drinking was a bottle of 8,000 Varus worth. Drinking a bottle every half an hour, it was simply intolerable. After all, in the past, Baal and Lily would only earn 40 to 50,000 Varus after spending a day on the 12th floor. Normally, they wouldn't be willing to spend that much on high-grade elixirs. This time, if she didn't know that Noah would lead the team to the lower floors, Lily wouldn't have bought it. In the end, he bought it and squandered it like this. It was really not worth it. Of course, Lily didn't know that if money could be used to create a high-level adventurer, there would definitely be many spawns willing to pay the price. Therefore, when Lily was feeling distressed, the girls of Loki's clan were full of envy. It would have been great if I could have had such treatment when I was at LV1. That was the unanimous thought in the minds of the Loki girls. Under such circumstances, the young ladies of Loki's clan began to deeply realize how blissful it was to have the protection of a deity like Noah. If all of Loki's spawn used this method to level up, then within a month, Ololai would only have one strongest spawn instead of two. At this time, even AIC couldn't help but have a thought. It would be great if Noah could join the Loki's clan. Thinking about it, it's possible. It's not against the law. While thinking so, the girls watched as Baal rampaged all the way from the 13th floor to the 17th floor. During the whole process, Baal was only responsible for killing the enemies, and the one who collected the magic stones and dropped items was Lily, his support. So, with Baal's hard work, Lily's backpack was full by the time they reached the 17th floor. If this bag of magic stones and dropped items were taken to the exchange shop on the ground, it could be exchanged for at least hundreds of thousands of Varus. At the thought of this gain, Lily felt a lot better in her heart. Then, everyone arrived in front of a huge cave. Flame lightning. Along with Belle's shout, a lightning-like flame flashed past, piercing through space and shooting toward the Minotaurus with the head of a cow and the body of a human. Boom! Amidst the muffled explosion, the level 2 Minotaur was directly hit in the chest by the lightning-like flame, and a large amount of blood spilled out. It slowly fell to the ground and scattered into a pile of ashes. Phew! Baal heaved a sigh of relief, wiped the sweat on his forehead, and muttered somewhat anxiously and excitedly. Even a level 2 Minotaurus can be defeated. Back then, when they first encountered the Minotaur under Noah's lead, it was when the Loki's clan was returning from an expedition, which caused a group of Minotaur to go berserk. As a result, it caused them to flee en masse, and one of them even ran to the upper floor and came in front of the inexperienced Baal. At that time, as a rookie adventurer, Baal, who did not know the immensity of heaven and earth, asked Noah to bring him to the lower floors, and encountered the Minotaur on the 7th floor. Baal clearly remembered how embarrassing he was in front of the huge Minotaur at that time, and how he was so scared that he didn't dare to move. Now, he had finally defeated a Minotaurus. At the thought of this, Baal's mood became excited. Just as Baal planned to continue to work hard and continue to fight to level up, there was not a single monster around him. Why is there no more? Baal was stunned. Lord Baal, please take a closer look. Lily walked up and sighed as she threw the magic stone of the Minotaur into her backpack. We have already come to the entrance of the 18th floor. This is the room of the level 4 floor master, Goliath. It's impossible for any monster to come close. The floor master of LV4. Belle's excited mood suddenly turned cold as if he had been splashed with cold water. Even if a monster of that level was strengthened to the limit, with Belle's current strength, it was absolutely impossible to win in a one-on-one battle with a monster of that level, right? After all, Belle was still too weak, and the number of times he could multiply was limited. Even if he strengthened to the limit, he could only reach level 4. A level 4 adventurer and a level 4 floor master, in a one-on-one battle, the former's probability of winning was almost less than 1 in 10. This was a well-trained level 4 adventurer with superb combat skills. For an adventurer like Belle, who used tricks to reach level 4, but his combat skills were still at level 1, in front of Goliath, it was estimated that it would only take a few punches, right? Can I challenge such a monster alone? Of course not, Noah said grumpily as he approached. Otherwise, I would have let you challenge the floor master directly. Why would I let you come down from the 13th floor? With that said, Noah pouted at the corner of the cave. Besides, the floor master has been defeated, didn't you see? Belle finally saw it clearly. On the side of the huge cave, the ice crystal-like wall had long been shattered into pieces, and all the gravel and debris were piled up together. It looked very messy. Was the floor master defeated? Leafia tilted her head and asked doubtfully. I haven't heard any news about this. The room where the floor master was located had an entrance to the 18th floor of the safety floor. For the adventurers who needed to go down, the floor master was an existence that could not be ignored. Therefore, whether the floor master was defeated or not was very important, and many people would pay attention to this news. If the floor master had been defeated, the news should have spread. In response, Noah said, Don't worry. Because he was defeated yesterday, the news hasn't spread yet, right? Ha! Leafia was suddenly stunned. How do you know? Of course, I know. Noah said calmly. Because I took care of it when I went back yesterday. Leafia choked directly. Belle looked at Noah with an indescribable expression, not knowing what to say. Even if he was strengthened beyond specifications, he had no chance of winning, but the head commander could easily kill him. It was really incomparable. Okay, after a busy day, we finally reached the entrance to the 18th floor. Noah clapped his hands. Let's go in and have a good rest. We will continue tomorrow. Everyone nodded in agreement. Unknowingly, Noah had become the leader of everyone. If this bag of magic stones and loot were sold on the surface, it would be worth at least a few 100,000 Veris. If you sell it here, it won't even be half of the price on the surface. Is it that overboard? Belle was frightened. But, if you don't sell it, there won't be any profit in the future. Tiona pointed out the main point. Our backpacks are full. If we don't sell them here, no matter how many monsters we kill later on, you can only leave the magic stones and loot by the roadside for others to pick up. Is that okay? Besides, you used up a lot of spiritual potions before this, right? Leafia added. If we don't buy some here, it'll be troublesome if we don't have enough later on. Lily was on the verge of tears. She grabbed Noah's hand and complained pitifully. In other words, Lily will be cheated again. Lord Noah, please save Lily. Isn't it just being cheated? Noah didn't know whether to laugh or cry. We're not short of money. If it's a few 100,000 Veris, we can still afford it, right? However, Lily retorted. That's not it. Other than the basic operating expenses, our clan tribe is completely broke. Ha! Noah was stunned. How can that be? Where did the money from selling the property of Apollo's clan go? It's all gone. Lily sighed. How do you think Lord Belle's magic was discovered? It was all done with money. Grimoire. It was a compulsory learning book for magic. Simply put, it was a precious item that could allow people with a mana bar to learn magic after reading it. Even if they didn't have a mana bar, it could still increase their mana bar. It was an item book that could only be written by people who had raised the two extremely rare development abilities of magic and mystery to the limit. Its price, even the lowest asking price, was the same as the first-tier equipment of Hephaestus's clan. When it was high, it could even be several times more. One must know that the first-tier equipment of Hephaestus's clan had a terrifying price of more than 10 million Varus. Therefore, the lowest asking price of a grimoire was tens of millions of Varus. When it was high, it could even be close to 100 million. It was so expensive that any clan would vomit blood. However, its effect was indeed worthy of the asking price. After all, it was an item that could allow people to discover magic and even increase their mana bar. Of course, it couldn't allow people to have a fourth mana bar. There had always been only 3 spells that could be provided by the ability value to the person who received the favor. Even Noah was no exception. But even so, if there were less than 3 mana bars, or if there was still a mana bar that hadn't been discovered, using this grimoire was equivalent to directly learning a spell or increasing the number of spells that could be learned. Just this alone was enough to show the preciousness of the grimoire. And most of the wealth from Apollo's clan was spent on it. Because Baal had always wanted to learn magic, and there was a lot of money in the clan, Hestia was merciful and spent a lot of money to buy it from an acquaintance, God, for Baal to use. That was how Baal's magic was discovered. In addition, Lady Hestia also bought some magic swords and left them with Lily so that Lily could use them in an emergency. Lily lowered her voice as if she didn't want the girls of Loki's clan to know the trump card here. In addition, Lady Hestia likes to read very much, so she used all the remaining money to buy some expensive books. She spent all the savings of the clan. The asking price of a grimoire was at least tens of millions of Varus. Moreover, this item was a one-time use item. After it was used, it would lose its effect and couldn't be used again. Otherwise, it would definitely be a terrifying sky-high price of hundreds of millions of Varus. The market price of a magic sword was at least 1 million Varus. In order to save their lives in an emergency, Hestia went on a shopping spree and bought a total of 11 magic swords, spending another tens of millions of Varus. In addition to that, she also bought a lot of books that were her favorite. The clan's savings were all spent in an instant, leaving only the money that Baal and Lily had earned in the past month. Some of it was used to pay for the clan's living expenses, and only a few 100,000 Varus was left, which could be used to repair equipment and prepare items. Therefore, Noah understood. In other words, Noah said uncertainly, "Are we very poor now?" "That depends on Lord Noah's harvest in the deeper regions in the past month," Lily said with a fake smile. But yesterday, Lord Noah said that he only cared about getting lost in the past month and didn't gain much at all. He only earned a few 100,000 Varus, right? Noah was speechless. A few 100,000 Varus in a month. Those were the spoils of war that Noah had gotten from killing some monsters blocking his way on his way back yesterday. In fact, Noah didn't earn a single cent in the past month. In addition, the treasury was no longer there. Noah was no longer that tall, rich, and handsome guy who didn't need to worry about money. And so, Noah understood. I should earn money to support the family. Chapter 1984. The 18-story town was built on a cliff that was more than 200 meters high. It was a simple town built on the terrain of crystals and rock walls. As soon as they entered the town, Noah and the others saw tents, wooden huts, and many shops like stalls. Only adventurers would come here. And almost all of them were LV2 adventurers. Without this level of strength, it was impossible to pass through the middle of the 13th to 17th floor and reach this safe floor. Therefore, there was only a sparse group of people on the street, and all of them were fully armed, filling the air with an austere atmosphere. Feeling the atmosphere in the air, Belle, a new one adventurer, almost subconsciously lowered his head. He almost pressed the words, "I'm a new bee, don't hit me," on his forehead. His cowering appearance really made him look like a frightened rabbit. Lily, on the other hand, was bargaining with the shop owner in the town's money exchange shop with a crisp voice. It was a pity that the shopkeeper had been picking his ears with an arrogant look, which made Lily so angry that her face turned red. Under such circumstances, Noah couldn't help but laugh while looking at AIC next to him. "What are you going to do next?" "Stay here," AIC answered truthfully. "For the next week, we'll stay here." In a word, the plan of the girls of Loki's clan was clear. They were going to use the 18th floor as a stronghold, go deep into the underground city, and earn money in the deeper areas. "We have camping equipment," Tiona said proudly. "So, we'll find a place to camp. If we stay here, we'll be cruelly ripped off. As for food, we'll also be preparing to collect fruits and wild vegetables in the underground city and cook them," Tiona added. "After all, we're here to make money, and we can't be ripped off in this town. Undoubtedly, you're LV1 adventurers, and you're living so miserably." Noah rolled his eyes, but he understood. Adventurers are probably used to this kind of life, right? Moreover, the environment of staying in the town was not necessarily better than camping. After all, the inn was simply built with wood, and it was difficult to not leak wind, let alone rain. Staying in such an inn was uncomfortable, and one would be ripped off, so no one wanted to stay there. Therefore, camping in the wild was absolutely necessary. "What's your plan, Mr. Noah?" Rifaya asked politely. "Are you also planning to camp outside?" "I was planning to go back on the same day." Noah stroked his chin and looked at Bale, who was timidly following behind them but couldn't help but look around. He then looked at Lily, who was still desperately bargaining with the shop owner. Noah shrugged as if he had given up. "However, it's almost dark now. If we return to the surface, it will probably be dawn already. It's better to rest for the night." "That's great," Tiona said in a jubilant voice. "I have so many things to ask you. This might be a good opportunity to dig out all your secrets, young man. Let's have a good chat tonight." Tiona also looked straight at Noah, and revealed a beautiful smile. "If you agree, there will be 4 great beauties to sleep with you tonight." Noah almost vomited blood. "Sleep with me?" Rifaya blushed, and even her voice was out of tune. Don't tell me that includes me. Isn't that obvious?" Tyogni said in a mocking tone. "We only brought 1 tent, right? Young man, you didn't bring a tent, so we can all sleep together tonight." Tiona hugged AIC's arm. "AIC, you're happy too, right?" "No. I didn't." AIC stole a glance at Noah. Her pretty face turned slightly red as she stuttered. "I didn't think that way." Unfortunately, her shy and bashful appearance made people feel that she was not persuasive at all. As for Bale, his face was already so red that it was about to explode. Everyone sleep together." "Sleep with Miss Wallenstein." Bale almost couldn't catch his breath. His face was as red as a monkey's butt, and he almost farted. No. Absolutely not." Rifaya resisted fiercely, and shook Tiona's hands as if begging for mercy. "I can't. If I sleep with a man, I'll definitely die." "Why are you so stingy, Rifaya?" Tiona said unhappily. "It's not like I'll lose anything." "That's right." Tioni nodded in agreement. "You don't hate young man Noah either, right? Why don't we use this opportunity to improve our relationship?" Not hating him and sleeping with him are 2 completely different things. Rifaya was on the verge of tears. She then glared at Bale with teary eyes. "Besides, Mr. Noah isn't the only man here." "Oh, right." Tiona seemed to have just remembered this, and looked at Bale. Young man's junior is here too. There's no other choice. Tiona sighed. Just as Rafia thought that she was going to give up, she said to Bale. Young man Bale, why don't you be in charge of the night watch? Night watch. Bale opened his mouth, and tears streamed down his face. They were all men, but their leader was being fought over to sleep with others, while he was being assigned to the night watch. Indeed, there was a difference between men. Even in the dungeon, one had to be powerful to be able to have a chance encounter. Bale started to have this seemingly correct but unorthodox idea in his heart. Just as Noah was going to be the one to sleep with and Bale was going to be the one to keep watch, there was a sudden commotion in front of them. Noah and his companions were startled. They turned their heads and looked ahead. He saw that not far ahead, a group of people were gathered together, as if they were watching a show, chattering non-stop. What's wrong? Tiona was puzzled. What happened? Tiona, on the other hand, grabbed an adventurer who was about to join in the fun and asked him directly. Hey, what's going on ahead? I don't know. The adventurer seemed to be a little angry that he was suddenly caught. When he saw that it was a level 1 adventurer from Loki's clan, the corners of his mouth twitched and he answered honestly. I heard that there was a conflict between 2 clans. In other words, there's a fight ahead. Tiona was curious. Let's go take a look. Tiona grabbed Tiona and Rafia's hands and ran forward quickly. Leader? Bale asked hesitantly. What should we do? Noah didn't answer. Instead, he exchanged glances with AIC, nodded, and walked forward. At this moment, Tiona had already brought Tiona and Rafia to the back of the crowd. Let us pass. Seeing that Tiona was about to rush in, a huge commotion broke out in the crowd. Isn't that the level 1 adventurer from Loki's clan? Get out of the way. The crowd instantly dispersed, allowing Tiona, and Rafia to pass through the separated path easily. Noah, AIC, and Bale followed behind and arrived at the center of the commotion. Finally, they saw 2 groups of people confronting each other. It was very easy to recognize the 2 groups of people. As for why, the reason was very simple. It was because one side was full of men, and the other side was full of women. The men were a group of fully armed adventurers. The women were a group of scantily clad Amazons. That was practically no different from being completely naked. The brazen attire that would cause one's heart to burn with lust made the innocent Leafia and the innocent Bale's faces turn red. They were so embarrassed that they were flustered. Tiona and Tiona were the only ones who were surprised to see the 2 groups of people confronting each other. Aren't they from Freya's clan and Ishta's clan? It's actually those 2 clan tribes. Ishta's clan. AIC and Rafia were slightly startled. Freya's clan. Noah raised an eyebrow and narrowed his eyes slightly. He didn't expect to meet Freya's clan in this place. Was it a coincidence? Or was it a trick of the infatuated goddess? But since Ishta's clan is here, the possibility of the former is higher. After all, Ishta's clan was the sworn enemy of Freya's clan. Chapter 1985. Near one of Eulalie's 8 main avenues, the Southeast Avenue, there was a happy street. As the name implied, it was a night street that could make men linger and forget to return. Almost all the shops on that night street were brothels. Of course, almost all the people who lived there were prostitutes. And the clan that had the happy street as its sphere of influence was Ishta's clan. Most of the members of Ishta's clan were Amazons. The ratio of men to women in the clan was 1:9, and they ran brothels in the southeast block of the city. It was said that the daily income of the brothels of Ishta's clan accounted for more than 40% of the total income of the entire Happy Street. Moreover, in addition to the commercial clan that ran the brothels, Ishta's clan was also a very famous exploration clan. Among the members of the clan, the Amazons who were responsible for fighting were known as the battle prostitutes, and most of them were adventurers above LV3. Among them, the leader of Ishta's clan was a LV5 level 1 adventurer. Of course, this was not the most important thing. The most important thing was that the main god of Ishta's clan, Ishta herself, was a goddess of beauty like Freya. That was to say, Ishta was also a goddess of beauty. She had the natural ability to charm men and women alike. She was a beautiful goddess who would be captivated by her beauty. However, as a goddess of beauty, Ishta had always been against Freya. There was no other reason other than the fact that Freya's clan was one of the two most powerful clans of Eulalie. Freya was also a beauty goddess, and her clan was known to be powerful. Although Ishta's clan was also one of the top clans in Eulalia and was much stronger than Apollo's clan, they were still far behind Freya's clan. Among Ishta's clan, the highest level leader was only LV5, while Freya's clan had the only LV7 adventurer. This fact showed the difference between the two. Not to mention, in Freya's family, there were several LV6 adventurers, not to mention LV5 adventurers. In terms of power, Freya's clan was above Ishta's clan. The main god, Freya, lived at the top of the Tower of Babel, symbolizing the peak of Eulalie. In terms of strength, Ishta's clan was far inferior to Freya's clan. Therefore, Ishta was jealous of Freya and had been targeting Freya all the time. She had been thinking of ways to bring Freya down all the time. In view of this, the relationship between Freya's clan and Ishta's clan was almost absolutely hostile. There was almost no clan in Eulalie that did not know about it. The members of the two clans actually met here. Looks like there will be a fierce fight today. Go ahead, go ahead. It's best if you destroy my stall as well. Then, I can take the opportunity to extort some money from you. Ha ha ha, you're right. The adventurers around the two clans who were confronting each other were all jeering as if they wanted to see the world in chaos. Seeing the surrounding adventurers jeering, among Ishta's clan, an Amazon with a strong sense of presence snorted coldly. With this cold snort, all the surrounding adventurers suddenly shut their mouths. Seeing this scene, in the crowd, Noah raised his eyebrows and whispered softly. It seems that the Amazon in Ishta's clan is not an ordinary person. As soon as Noah's whisper sounded, Tiona turned around and said to Noah, "Little brother, don't you know Aisha Belka?" Aisha Belka. Noah thought for a while, then shook his head. Among Ishta's clan, I only heard some rumors about the LV5 leader, but I haven't heard of Aisha Belka. Aisha Belka is very famous, Tiona began to explain. She is the leader of the battle prostitutes in Ishta's family. Although she is only LV3, it is said that she is close to LV4. Among the Ishta's family, where LV3 battle prostitutes are the main fighting force, there is no doubt that she is the top figure. The gods gave her the title Ligia. Ligia. Noah cast his gaze on Aisha Belka. Looking at the heroic aura exuding from her tall and slim figure, he couldn't help but smile. She does have the temperament of a heroine. Little brother, do you like Aisha? Tiona said with some anger. But it's also true. Although Aisha is only LV3, in Amazon, she is more famous than us. After all, Aisha has already tasted men, but we don't even have a man. Tiona pouted. In Amazon, we can only be regarded as little girls. We can't compare to Aisha at all. Listening to Tiona talking about men all the time, Rafia and Belle only blushed. Even AIC was a little embarrassed. Noah was also speechless. At the same time, he once again recognized the openness of the Amazon. If it was another race, if the women in the race were known for tasting all kinds of men, their reputation would definitely be so bad that it couldn't get any worse. However, in Amazon, People who have not tasted the opposite sex would be regarded as children who have not yet grown up. This was the difference in racial perception. Therefore, among Ishta's clan, the battle prostitutes were basically Amazon. There were very few prostitutes of other races. At this time, in the field, the dispute between the two clans also reached its peak. Ishta's clan, don't go too far. In Freya's clan, the leader of the male adventurers roared angrily. Do you really want to start a war with us? Hearing this, the battle prostitutes of Ishta's clan did not take it seriously at all. They just sneered there, but their posture was extremely provocative, which made the surrounding male adventurers breathe a little faster. Aisha, on the other hand, glanced at Freya's family members and said in an orderly manner. It's useless to say this to me. When we heard that you were doing something in the underground city, Goddess Ishta told us that no matter what you are planning to do, we only need to destroy it. So, if you have any complaints, go talk to our Lord God. This sentence made Freya's clan clench their teeth in anger. Too arrogant. Damn Ishta's clan. We are here under the noble order of the goddess. Who would waste time playing games with you bunch of sluts? Freya's clan adventurers yelled while glaring at the group of sluts in front of them. In response, the sluts just laughed coquettishly. Their laughter was so seductive that it made people's stomach tighten involuntarily. However, in the next moment, a guy came out from Ishta's clan, who made the men who were looking at the sluts with obscene eyes feel cold. Aisha, why are you talking so much nonsense with them? Accompanied by such an unpleasant and ear-piercing sound, a huge object approached. It was a man who was more than 2 meters tall. He wore red and black clothes that were similar to hunting equipment. He had short brown arms and legs, but his body was as sturdy as a burly man. His limbs were extremely uncoordinated with his body. Not only was his body uncoordinated, but his appearance was even more hideous. Short black hair, restless eyeballs, and a horizontally cracked mouth. That face was just like a toad's. Monster. The men's faces turned green, and they were all scared witless. In response, Weirdo Toad laughed out loud. Croak, 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 croak. Did you see that? Aisha. These men are all crying because of my beauty. As he said this, the monster glanced at the men around him with brutal eyes. I'm in a good mood today. You're in luck. I'll pick a few later and have some fun with you tonight. At this moment, all the men felt like they were prey targeted by a monster. Their faces were twisted, and their legs were trembling. However, as the toad monster swept its hunter-like gaze across the male toads, it suddenly saw a person. In the crowd, there was a blonde swordswoman wearing light clothes and a thin sword at her waist. It was Aisha. The toad monster's laughter stopped abruptly. No. Tiona and Tiona thought of something and exclaimed at the same time. Aisha. Be careful. Almost at the same time, a violent roar resounded. Aisha Wallenstein. Chapter 1986. A.I.C. Wallenstein. Accompanied by a demon-like roar, a strange toad-like creature from Ishta's clan stomped on the ground and dashed toward A.I.C. at a speed that didn't match its huge size. The instant the roar rang out, A.I.C.'s body had already tensed up. Looking at the meteorite-like giant figure shooting over, a tinge of astonishment flashed across her eyes. However, immediately after, like a nimble butterfly, the tip of her foot pushed off the ground and her body retreated with lightning speed. Whoosh! Along with a sharp piercing sound, the gigantic figure arrived at the same instant as retreated and heavily smashed into the ground like a meteor. Boom! A loud sound like an explosion rang out. The sudden heavy blow shattered the ground, stirring up a violent shock wave and flying sand. Oh! The onlookers who were closer to the scene were immediately affected. They were drowned by the violent impact and flying sand in a burst of sorrowful cries. One by one, they were bounced off like rubber balls and smashed into the surrounding stalls and buildings. The whole scene suddenly became completely chaotic. Run! Run! That monster has gone crazy. Run now! The surrounding adventurers all acted as if they had encountered an extremely terrifying monster. They fled in all directions with tears and snot in their eyes, scattering like birds and beasts. Only Tiona and Tiorn scurried away almost immediately and hid to the side. Noah also scurried away. However, unlike Tiona and Tiorn, Noah hugged Leafia with one hand and grabbed Baal's collar with the other, appearing beside the Amazon sisters in a flash. Leafia, who only reacted at this moment, realized that she was in Noah's arms. Her pretty face turned completely red. We're saved. Baal sat on the ground with a pale face and a look of lingering fear. Sir Noah. Lord Baal. Lily ran over from afar at this moment with an anxious expression on her face. Are the two of you all right? I'm fine, Lily. Baal replied subconsciously. Then, he seemed to have thought of something. He quickly looked around and spoke anxiously. Where's Miss Wallenstein? Is she all right? Noah did not answer Belle's question. He did not seem to notice the blushing elf girl in his arms who looked as though she was about to faint. He lifted his eyes and looked ahead. Over there, in the crater created by the explosion, the toad monster's face was contorted. His face was filled with hatred and resentment as he stared at the other side. Facing Weirdo Toad's hateful and resentful gaze, AIC put one hand on the scabbard at her waist and frowned her pretty eyebrows slightly. Obviously, AIC didn't expect that Weirdo Toad to suddenly attack her. On the other hand, Tiona and Tiorn seemed to have expected this scene. That toad girl is still holding a grudge against AIC. What an unsalvageable ugly monster. Tiona and Tionas's voices were filled with dishness. As for Noah, he looked at Weirdo Toad who was glaring at AIC and recalled the information he received. As mentioned earlier, Noah only knew the leader of Ishta's spawn tribe. The big guy in front of him was the leader of Ishta's spawn tribe. She was a level 1 adventurer of Ishta's spawn tribe, a level 5 Horfrini Jamil. Her title was Man Killer. She was undoubtedly an ugly monster, but she thought she had unparalleled beauty and often forced men to have fun with her until they were squeezed to death. Ace Wallenstein! Cried Franny, in a voice close to a growl. You actually dare to appear in front of me? Frini Jamil. AIC's pretty eyebrows furrowed deeper and deeper. She tilted her head and asked with a puzzled look. Why did you attack me? She tilted her head in confusion, her pale golden hair flowing down to her waist, reflecting the dazzling light of the sun and reflecting the breathtakingly beautiful face. Freeny's large face contorted in disgust. Why did I attack you? Freeny laughed with a sharp and unpleasant voice. Because I want to. Can't I? Now, if AIC still didn't understand that Freeny was deliberately looking for trouble, then she wasn't a natural but an idiot. AIC stared at Freeny and didn't say anything, but the feeling she gave off completely changed. If the previous AIC gave off the feeling of a harmless and cute kitten, then the current AIC gave off the feeling of a fearsome warrior who had experienced hundreds of battles. Croak, 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 croak. Freeny laughed like a toad. What? Didn't you want to fight me too? Then why are you pretending? Just as Freeny was about to launch another attack, Aisha and the other combat prostitutes of Ishta's family approached and spoke sternly. Freeny. Goddess Ishta ordered us to deal with Freya's spawn. Not Loki's spawn. Shut up. Idiot. Freeny shouted in disdain. I don't need you to tell me what to do. What? Aisha's face darkened. Do you want to disobey the order? Order? Who dares to order me? Freeney was so angry that she laughed. Anyway, those Freya spawn trash are only LV3 like you. Just go and take care of them. Don't bother me. Freeney looked at AIC again and laughed. I didn't expect to meet a doll girl like you in a place like this. Very well, I will crush that ugly face of yours today. Let's see if those gods, humans, and whatnot will still call you beautiful. As soon as she finished speaking, Freeney's huge body transformed into a war chariot and charged straight towards AIC. Every step she took caused the ground to rumble and tremble. She was almost twice as small as Freeney. Her figure was so slender that it was as if the wind could blow her up. However, AIC did not show the slightest bit of fear in the face of Freeney's charge. She merely placed her hand slowly on the sword at her waist. Ms. Wallenstein. Belle couldn't help but exclaim. Don't worry. Both Tiona and Tiona said in unison. AIC will not lose to that toad girl. As soon as Tiona and Tiona finished speaking, sword light flashed. Clang! Amidst the crisp sound of the sword at the girl's waist unknowingly turned into a flash of light. Like a fleeting meteor, it streaked across the arm of the huge enemy. Poochie! Amidst the clear sound of flesh being torn apart, blood spurted out from Freeney's shoulder as her skin was cut open. Oh, 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 oh. Freeney howled in pain. But in the next moment, Freeney's expression turned sinister. What does this mean? Puppet girl. Amidst her roar, her short toad-like arms spun towards AIC like a windmill, ignoring the lacerations on her flesh. Bang! A muffled explosion sounded, and the ground was shattered once again. The shockwave and dust swept across the surroundings like a gale. However, before that, the young female swordsman leaped up and swayed into the air like a leaf. The sword in her hand once again transformed into a sword light and slashed across the toad girl's arm. Poochie! Another sound of flesh being torn apart. Freeney's tendons were severed, and blood splattered everywhere. The toad monster howled in pain like a wild beast. It was hard to imagine that it was a woman. So powerful. Belle was stunned. Her opponent was a LV5 level 1 adventurer. In the face of such an opponent, AIC was able to easily leave wounds on his body. This was the difference between the levels of the players. It was the difference between LV5 and LV6. That idiot. Not far away, Aisha gritted her teeth and said to a combat whore next to her. There's no other way. Prepare for that and let Freeney take down the swordswoman first. Yes. The combat whore accepted the order and left. However, the people of Ishta's clan didn't notice. A pair of deep, pitch-black eyes stared straight at her, flickering with a frightening light. Chapter 1987. Noah didn't know why Freeney was so hostile to AIC. However, the strength of that ugly monster was undeniable. She was definitely a level 1 adventurer. It was a genuine LV5. There was not a trace of exaggeration. If it was the previous AIC, even if she was known as the strongest swordswoman in Eulalie, it would not be so easy to defeat Freeney. Unfortunately, in the last expedition, AIC used the noble phantasm that Noah lent her to kill the floor master in the deep area alone. She had already upgraded to LV6. LV5 and LV6. At first glance, there was only one level difference, but the gap between the two could be described as heaven and earth. For those who relied purely on the grace given by God to improve their strength, this level difference was almost impossible to overcome. Even if AIC did not upgrade to LV6 for a long time, it was the same. From the very beginning, AIC had been unstoppable, forcing Franny into an irreversible disadvantage, proving this point even more. In other words, facing AIC who was at LV 6, Franny who was only at LV 5 had no chance of winning. Unless Franny had some hidden trump card. Or Ishta's family had some hidden trump card. Therefore, from the beginning, Noah did not pay much attention to the battle between AIC and Franny. Instead, he focused most of his attention on the combat prostitutes of Ishta's family. It turned out that Noah's idea was correct. Ishta's family did have some important hidden trump card. And that trump card quickly appeared in front of Noah. Quick! Push it up. With the order of a combat prostitute of Ishta's family, a large cargo was pushed up. It was a large iron box used to transport supplies. The capacity of the box was very large, at least able to fit several people. There was a piece of cloth covering it, making it impossible to see the situation inside. However, Noah felt it. In that box, there was a presence. A presence that was not strong, even a little weak. Aisha reached out and opened the lid of the box. In the next moment, Noah almost doubted his eyes. Because what was in the box was neither a monster nor goods, but a person. There was a girl sitting upright at the bottom of the box. She was wearing a kimono and a feather-like armor on her head. The girl wasn't human. The girl had waist-length golden hair that was brighter than AIC's. She had a pair of fox-like ears on her head and a fox-like tail on her back, proving that she was the real deal. Volpara. Noah's brows furrowed tightly. What was Ishta's clan going to do? Was that Volpara a member of Ishta's clan? Then why put him in the box? While Noah was confused, Aisha lowered her head and whispered to the Volpara girl in the box. In the next moment, the Volpara girl raised her head and revealed a beautiful face that was both charming and pure. She looked at Franny who was being suppressed by AIC and lowered her head again. Right at that moment, a faint mana fluctuation surged from the Volpara girl's body. Whing! An inexplicable trembling sound rang out, and everyone present saw it. Specks of light flickered from her body like fireflies, covering her huge toad-like body. In the next second, everyone, including Noah, was shocked. Friolini, who was being suppressed by A's, suddenly let out a loud cry. Above the giant body, an unbelievably violent pressure suddenly surged. Croak, croak, croak. Is it finally here? Franny laughed heartily as she observed AIC's astonished expression. Her eyes began to move irregularly from top to bottom, left to right, as a frightening murderous glint flickered within. Go to hell. With an ear-piercing roar, Franny's short arm swung down like a thick club. Bam! The astonishing power caused the ground to suddenly shatter, exploding with a terrifying impact. It was mixed with pieces of rubble, shaking in all directions and shooting out like bullets. AIC obviously didn't expect Franny to suddenly become so strong. While she was shocked, the rocks that turned into a hail of bullets rained down on her like a storm. AIC didn't dare to be careless. She swung the thin sword in her hand, which transformed into streaks of cold sword radiance that interweaved like raindrops, and met the rain of bullets. Bam, 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 bam. Amidst the continuous muffled explosions, the broken rocks that had transformed into bullets were all detonated by the gorgeous sword radiance, raising gusts of wind and dust. However, at the same time, a shadow also enveloped AIC, blocking the sunlight that shone on her body. AIC. Tiona, Tiny, Leafia, and the other girls cried out in alarm. Almost at the same time, AIC abruptly raised her head and looked towards the sky. Whoosh! Amidst the sharp sound of breaking air, a huge black shadow transformed into a meteorite that fell from the sky like a mountain. It rubbed against the air and heavily smashed towards AIC. Boom! Amidst the deafening roar, the huge body that had turned into a black shadow smashed the ground until it exploded. Layers upon layers of the ground caved in, causing the storm-like impact chi to sweep up and explode in all directions. At the critical moment, AIC took a step back and leaped a small distance away. Therefore, the huge black shadow that fell from the sky didn't land on AIC and cause a direct hit. However, AIC wasn't happy, but rather shocked. This was because the huge black shadow that fell from the sky had already raised its arm, and with its overwhelming size advantage, it swept towards AIC along with the shockwave. Whoosh! The whistling sound of a strong wind rang out. The fierce blow from the short limbs caused Freddy's fist to become like a cannonball that ruthlessly smashed towards AIC's face. Looking at the momentum, even if AIC's head didn't explode, her fragile face would be smashed into pieces if she was hit. Freddy was so vicious that her attack was aimed at AIC's face on purpose. Clang! The sound of metal clashing suddenly rang out. AIC raised her weapon in front of her in time to block the cannonball-like fist that came straight at her. However, the powerful force still sent AIC flying like a ball that was slapped away. Her feet rubbed against the ground and left 2 deep marks on the ground. She only stopped after sliding for more than 100 meters. Phew! Tiona, Leafia, Bale, and even Lily couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. The situation just now was really too thrilling. One wrong move and AIC would have been seriously injured by that toad girl before anyone could react. And it would have ended with her disfigurement. Tiona, and Rafia were enraged when they realized this. Only AIC slowly lowered her sword-wielding hand. The sharp-eyed Noah saw it. AIC's hand that was holding onto the sword was trembling without a trace. It was a phenomenon of numbness from the tremendous force. AIC looked at Freddy with a solemn expression and murmured. LV-6, that's right. At this moment, the combat power Freddy displayed was not something a LV-5 could possess. Although they didn't know what method Freddy used, it was an indisputable fact that Freddy's combat power suddenly increased to LV-6. Why? AIC was confused. At this time, Aisha and the others had already closed the lid of the box and made the Volpera girl disappear in front of everyone without anyone noticing. Except for Noah. That Volpera girl is the problem. With absolute certainty, Noah determined the reason for Franny's sudden increase in strength. Tiona, Leafia, and the others who didn't see the Volpera girl were both furious and bewildered. Croak, croak, croak. Franny was still laughing triumphantly. What LV-6 strongest swordswoman? Sure enough, it was only to this extent. Croak, croak, croak. Hearing this, the confusion on AIC's face gradually disappeared. She looked at Franny, her hand reaching for the bracelet on her wrist. Seeing this, Noah finally spoke. Alright, there's no need to use your trump card in this situation. Chapter 1988. When Noah's voice echoed clearly in the surroundings, the sinister atmosphere in the air seemed to be crushed by an invisible force that appeared out of nowhere, disintegrating into nothingness. Suddenly, everyone's eyes narrowed. Only then did the combat prostitutes of Esta's clan notice Noah's existence, and they all widened their eyes. Isn't that the tyrant? He's here too. Oh my god, a group of combat prostitutes who were at least LV-3 were all shaken. Aisha also frowned tightly, and her body tensed up involuntarily. As for Franny, her huge face suddenly froze, and she couldn't react at all. Tyrant. For all of Eulalia, there was really no existence more famous than this title in recent times. That was because all the residents of Urali were watching the live broadcast on the screen, watching how Noah uprooted and defeated Apollo's minions. Furthermore, Noah had publicly rejected the courtship of the beauty goddess at the banquet held by Freya's family. He had even fought Otto, who was LV7, to a standstill in front of everyone. And all of this had happened only a month ago. In this way, it would be difficult for Noah not to be famous. To put it bluntly, in the current Eulalia, if the adventurers on the street were asked who they didn't want to provoke the most, 99 out of 100 people would definitely mention this title. Tyrant. An existence that had recently risen to the top of the world with fierce forces and was known by everyone. Even Ishta's family members had to fear him. Under such circumstances, the group of battle whores couldn't react for a while. Instead, Tiona, and Lefia took the opportunity to come to AI's side. Ms. AI. Lefia asked anxiously. Are you okay? I'm fine. AI slowly shook her head. Not only did she withdraw her hand from the bracelet on her wrist, but she also put her sword back into the scabbard on her waist. However, AIC's eyes were fixated on Franny. The light particles that were still lingering around Frey's gigantic body began to gradually dissipate. Frey's aura, which had suddenly skyrocketed, gradually decreased from LV6 all the way back to LV5. That was Friuli's true rank. The explosion just now was merely borrowing the power of another source of energy. Just like Noah, who used the item called Red Dragon Emperor's Boosted Gear to greatly enhance Baal's strength. What kind of power was that? Magic? Skill? Or was it a prop? AIC could not understand. Logically speaking, the kind of power that could greatly increase one's ability value and even increase one's level shouldn't exist. Otherwise, in this world, the existence of levels would not be constantly mentioned. It was precisely because of the absolute nature of the difference in levels that people would firmly believe in ability value and use it to determine the strength of adventurers. If there was a power that could ignore the difference in levels, it would have caused a huge uproar. Noah's existence was an example. Undoubtedly, he was just a newcomer, an adventurer who had just received God's grace not long ago, but with a low level, he was above the first-level adventurers. His reputation spread throughout the world in less than a few months, and he was at the top of the adventurers. However, there was still an explanation for Noah's strength that did not match his level. After all, before the gods came, there were also ancient warriors who trained hard and could be compared to the monsters in the underground city. When Noah first came to this world and showed strength that was different from God's grace, Loki had already mentioned that Noah was likely to be in existence similar to an ancient warrior. In this regard, the gods all had the same opinion. In this era, it's simply an extinct species of giant panda. AIC didn't know what the so-called extinct giant panda was. However, Loki had said such a thing to AIC. After 1,000 years, there should be a child among the people of the lower realm who can make the gods amazed. Noah was the child who made the gods amazed. Moreover, he was the only one in 1,000 years. Such a person, until now, who knew how many miraculous methods he had come up with, and he was indeed worthy of the gods' admiration. But even so, when Noah took out the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear and learned about its ability, everyone still felt dizzy even though they were mentally prepared. One could imagine how amazing it was to be able to give people the power to subvert levels. Not only did Noah have such means, but even Ishta's family also had such means. That was simply too illogical. AIC was not the only one who had such thoughts. Tiona, Tioni, and Rafia also had such thoughts. Hey! Toad girl! Tiona stepped forward and glared at Frayne. What kind of despicable method did you use to increase your strength? This sentence made Baal's expression stiffen. Before coming to the 18th floor, he was the one who used a method to increase his strength. So, this time, Baal was shot even though he was lying down. However, no one would pay attention to a new LV1 adventurer at this time. The girls of Loki's family stared at the battle prostitutes of Ishta's family. And the battle prostitutes of Ishta's family looked at Noah standing on the side with fear in their eyes. Tyrant. Aisha stared at Noah and said in a deep voice. This is a matter between Ishta's family and Loki's family. Do you want to interfere? A matter between Ishta's family and Loki's family. Noah grinned. When did your target change to Loki's family? Did all of Freya's family members run away? With Noah's reminder, Aisha came to her senses and hurriedly looked at where Freya's family was. Of course, there was not a single trace of a single person in that place. In other words, the mission given by the master god of Ishta's family had ended in failure. Thinking of this, Aisha looked at Franey angrily. Franey. Look at what you've done. Let's see how you explain this to Master Ishta. Explain my ass. Franey was even more furious and didn't choose her words carefully. I don't care about a bunch of trash. Stop looking like you're teaching me a lesson. It's still too early for you. Is that so? Aisha sneered. In that case, I hope when you go back, you can still be so stubborn in front of Master Ishta. Freeney's entire body began to tremble. It was not because of fear, but because of anger. Damn it. Bastard. Damn it. Franey looked at Noah with bloodshot eyes and growled. No matter what, I'm going to give that doll girl a good beating today. If you stand aside and watch, you can play with me all you want tonight. Hearing Franey's words, everyone looked at her differently. It was as if they were looking at an idiot without self-awareness. Their eyes were full of pity. What do you think? The offer is tempting, right? Franey didn't realize that she said something stupid. She cracked her toad-like mouth and laughed. Compared to that ugly doll girl over there, you might as well be with this old lady. Seeing that you're the world-famous tyrant, this old lady will be yours from now on. You should feel honored. Seeing the toad monster spouting nonsense, Tiona, Rafia, and even Lily had the urge to vomit. Bale's face turned green and white, and his heart was about to explode from fear. On the contrary, Noah looked at Franey, who thought she was beautiful, and said emotionlessly. Too bad. As Noah said that, he reached out his hand and pulled the stunned Ace into his embrace. He then said with a faint smile on his face. I like the ugly doll girl you're talking about. You should go and take advantage of someone else. Franey's bloodshot eyes instantly widened. Ai's pretty face became extremely red. In this situation, Noah glanced at Aisha and said indifferently, Go and take back your toad. Hurry up and bring your lazy toad back home. Don't let her come out and make a fool of herself. This sentence made Aisha's expression extremely ugly. Chapter 1989. If possible, Aisha really wanted to take off Freeney's head and see how much paste was wrapped inside to make her become so self-righteous. Others didn't know why Freeney was against Ai, but how could Aisha not know? It was all because of jealousy. Just like the main god of her clan, this toad girl always thought that she was the most beautiful one and that no woman in the world could surpass her in terms of beauty. However, as the saying goes, the audience's eyes are the brightest. Ishta always thought that she was the most beautiful one, but others always praised Freya, who was also a beauty, and this shattered Ishta's self-confidence. As a result, Ishta developed a one-sided jealousy towards Freya and constantly targeted Freya. That was fine. After all, Ishta was also a goddess of beauty. Her appearance was indeed peerless. Even if she didn't use her charm ability, she could still make all the men in the world fall head over heels in love with her and forget about their home. In other words, Ishta still had the capital to compete with the target of jealousy. It was understandable for others to think that she was not as good as Freya and thus become jealous. However, what was Freeney? A lazy toad that was so ugly that it could make people vomit actually dreamed of being the most beautiful person in the world all day long. For this reason, it even looked down on the main god, who was known as the goddess of beauty. It really made people feel that it was no longer a problem with its eyes, but rather a problem with its head. However, this toad girl was like Ishta. When she thought that she was the most beautiful person, others kept praising the beauty of Ai, who was also at LV5, saying that her beauty was comparable to that of a goddess, and everyone coveted her. Therefore, this self-righteous toad girl was jealous. A few years ago, she even went to find Ai and fought with her, but it was to no avail. Because of this, Freeney had always harbored hatred and jealousy in her heart. She could not wait to crush Ai's admirable face. Not only was her appearance ugly, but her heart was even uglier. And this jealousy finally could no longer be hidden after Loki's clan announced that Ai had leveled up and became the strongest female swordsman at LV6. Aisha remembered that on the day she heard the news, Freeney kidnapped hundreds of men for 3 days and 3 nights in a row and squeezed them all to death just to ask one question. Who is more beautiful, me or that doll girl? It was this question that caused the deaths of hundreds of men. It was easy to imagine what kind of answer the hundreds of men gave. In the end, this toad girl didn't realize it. Competing with the swordswoman in terms of beauty. What right did she have? Just like what Noah had said, this person was simply making a fool of himself. It was extremely ugly. Unfortunately, she didn't have this self-awareness. Looking at the scene where Noah hugged Ai tightly and Ai, who was lying in his arms shyly, and Tiona, Leafia, Lily, and Belle were all dumbfounded, Freeney's giant body began to tremble. The oppressive feeling seemed to symbolize the anger in its owner's heart. It gradually began to spread and made the entire space heavy. Are you blind? Freeney was like a volcano about to erupt. Her toad-like eyes were filled with blood as she stared at Noah and growled. That doll girl can't even compare to a single hair on my body, and you chose her. Yes, I chose her, Noah said without hesitation. If this counts as being blind, then I'll probably thank the heavens for giving me a pair of blind eyes instead of a pair of perfect eyes to look at a toad like you. Huff. Huff. Freeney's breathing began to become louder like a mad bull. She clenched her fists so tight that even the veins began to bulge. If it was another man who said this, Freeney would have already torn him to pieces. No, tearing him to pieces was a light punishment. Based on this toad girl's usual style, she would first squeeze the man dry and force him to say that she was the most beautiful woman, then tear him to pieces. But the man in front of her was not someone who could be easily squashed. Let's not talk about Freeney, let's talk about Aisha. That idiot Freeney didn't know her limits, but Aisha did. Therefore, Aisha could clearly see. On Noah's seemingly smiling face, a pair of dark and deep eyes flashed with a cold light from time to time. The cold light made Aisha feel as if she had fallen into an ice cave. So, Aisha knew. This youth who appeared to be conversing amiably with Freeney had long since been annoyed by Freeney's foolish actions and words, and even loathed her. If Freeney didn't know her limits, then it would only take 1 second for this toad girl to die in this underground city and never return to the surface. Then, Aisha gritted her teeth, took a deep breath, and suddenly said, I've long heard that the rumored tyrant could resist the charm of the goddess of beauty and even rejected Freya's proposal. Now that I've seen it today, the rumors are indeed true. While the others were puzzled by his words, Freeney was startled for a moment before she came to a realization. Right, this man could even ignore the charm of the goddess of beauty, Freya. Even in front of a beauty, he wouldn't easily compromise. Although she was more beautiful than the goddess of beauty, it wasn't that she wasn't beautiful enough, but that the man in front of her wasn't attracted to women. Thinking of this, Freeney only felt the anger in her heart disappear without a trace. She snorted. A little brat who doesn't even understand the taste of women, it's useless to say anything. The self-righteous Freeney had long forgotten that Noah was holding Aic tightly in his arms. How could he not be attracted to women? This toad girl was really stupid. But Noah was impressed by Aisha. "You're the same, no wonder you're called the heroine." Noah looked at Aisha and suddenly smiled. "You have more tricks up your sleeve than I thought. You don't have to compliment me, I'm just a slut who loves pleasure." Aisha met Noah's gaze, licked her lips, and smiled like a carnivorous beast. "If one day, our tyrant comes to Happy Street, I hope you can name me to serve you, then I'll be satisfied." The explicit words made the innocent girls all blush, but the battle sluts all looked at Noah with passionate eyes, obviously agreeing with Aisha's words. "Since Freya's family has retreated, then there's no need for us to stay here," Aisha mentioned intentionally or unintentionally. "Freeney, let's give the tyrant some face. I'm not interested in a man who doesn't know how to appreciate women." Freeney glared at AIC. "But, the puppet girl over there, remember this, I'll tell you sooner or later, in front of the secret weapon of our Ishta family, LV6 is nothing." Secret weapon. Everyone had a reaction to this word. But at this time, the battle sluts had already begun to retreat. Under Freeney's lead, they gradually left. Only Aisha stared at Noah. Her eyes flickered, and after struggling for a while, she sighed. "Boy, I hope you can come to Happy Street." Leaving this sentence, Aisha turned around and left the scene. Noah's group watched Ishta's family members leave, and they all became silent, as if they were thinking about something. That, after a while, a somewhat embarrassed voice slowly sounded. Hearing this, Noah finally reacted. He lowered his head and looked at his arms. There, AIC's pretty face was slightly red, and she didn't know what to do. Hee hee. Tiona giggled. "Little brother, how does it feel to hug AIC?" Tiona suddenly had a teasing expression. Leafia's eyebrows were raised, and she looked very angry. Lily sighed while holding her forehead. Belle's face was full of envy and jealousy. Looking at everyone's expression, Noah laughed dryly and quickly let go of AIC. The moment the warm embrace and broad chest left, AIC couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. But then, an indescribable feeling surged in AIC's heart. It was like sadness. It was like reluctance. A strange feeling. Chapter 1990. After the people of Ishta's clan hurriedly left, the adventurers who had been hiding came out one by one, wiping their cold sweat with lingering fear while sweating profusely. Ishta's family's whore, she actually left without saying a word. She didn't put us in her eyes at all. Don't think that's the end of it. I will definitely send the bill for destroying the flowers and plants here to Ishta's family. Forget it, unless you don't want to go to Happy Street in the future. Do you dare to collect that stinky money from others? Be careful not to be dragged to the city gate by those whores in the middle of the night. Then you will be completely famous. Forget it, I can't afford to offend them, can't I just hide? That's right, the group of adventurers cursed as they returned to their homes as though nothing had happened. Only a few adventurers who had been violently smashed holes in the ground in front of their homes continued to grumble, but they quickly filled up the holes in their homes. For this town, this level of destruction was really nothing. Although this was a safe floor where monsters wouldn't appear, it didn't mean that there were no monsters. For example, the monsters that came down from the 17th floor or the monsters that came up from the 19th floor would all flock to this floor and occupy it as their king. That was why the town was built in such a dangerous place like a cliff. It could be used to block some monsters, and it could also be built using natural rock walls and crystals. It was easy to build a town. It was said that in the past, there were monsters that attacked this town and destroyed it completely. However, the adventurers here didn't care at all. When the monsters attacked, they immediately retreated. When the monsters finished venting, they would leisurely rush back and rebuild the town. In any case, this town was simply built with wood and tents. Almost all the adventurers who could come to the 18th floor were adventurers with LV 2 or above. With the ability value of a group of adventurers with LV, 2 or above, rebuilding a temporary town made of wood and tents couldn't be done in minutes, but it could be done overnight. Therefore, these adventurers who opened shops in the town to make money had long been used to it and didn't really take it seriously. By the time the surrounding adventurers had mostly dispersed, the ground that Freeney had destroyed had already been filled up. It was as if nothing had happened, leaving everyone speechless. As for Noah's group, they moved to a hotel and began to discuss the matter of Ishta's clan. "I think we should teach that toad girl a lesson." In a cave that had been transformed into a hotel, Noah's group sat around a messy wooden table, listening to Tiona's complaints. "That ugly freak has been causing trouble for AIC for no apparent reason. It's so annoying," Tiona grumbled. "If Finn and Riveria were here, they definitely wouldn't have let them go so easily. Why do we need Finn and Riveria to be here?" Tioni laughed. "If you really want to teach Ishta's family a lesson, you have me, Ishta, and Ishta. Isn't that enough?" "Yes." Rifaya seemed to have been angered by Freddy's disgusting self-righteousness, especially when she thought about how Freddy, with that toad-like face of hers, kept saying that she was prettier than the Miss A's she was looking forward to. Her pretty face tensed up. Although the leader of Ishta's family is LV5, Miss Ishta and Miss Ishta are also LV5, and Miss Ishta is LV6. They can definitely teach Ishta's family a lesson. Although no one knew the overall quality of Ishta's family without seeing it with their own eyes, but in the group of combat whores just now, except for Ishta, the rest of the combat whores were only LV3. There was no need for 2 LV5 level 1 adventurers to deal with an opponent of that level. Either Ishta or Ishta could deal with it. In that case, there was nothing to be afraid of at all. This was what Leafia wanted to express. In this regard, Bell just shrank his neck and didn't say a word. Because there was a clear gap in the level of the conversation. A LV5 adventurer can take care of a group of LV3 battle whores. That was true. However, in the same way, LV3 combat whore could deal with Bell, who was LV1, easily. Therefore, Bell couldn't interrupt at all and could only shrink his neck and listen. Lily, on the other hand, frowned slightly and said, "Don't worry." But why did the leader of Ishta's family suddenly become strong? Lily pointed out the most crucial question. At that moment, everyone, including AIC who had been silent, cast their eyes on Noah. Under everyone's gaze, Noah couldn't help but recall the Volpera girl who was put into an iron box by Ishta's family. So, Noah said so. "There's no doubt that Ishta's family should be like me. They must have mastered some means to increase their strength in a short time. Otherwise, with the strength of that arrogant toad girl, it's impossible to win against AIC." Noah looked around at the group of girls. "The question is, what does that means?" Everyone suddenly became silent. Only Tjorn suddenly tapped his palm. "Now that you mention it, I suddenly thought of something." Everyone's gazes immediately gathered on Tyogni. "Hey, AIC, Leafia, do you remember there was such a rumor before?" Ishta said so. Ishta's family is actually hiding their strength. Hiding their strength. Belle and Lily were slightly startled. Hiding their strength. Noah's attention was also attracted. AIC, Leafia, and Leafia seemed to have thought of something and looked at each other. "Little brother, you should know about it, right? Although an individual's ability value is a secret of a clan, if it's only the level, it must be recorded in the guild. Only then can we plan the level of the family," Ishta said with assurance. Previously, a few clans who were hostile to Ishta's family complained to the guild, saying that Ishta's family members were far stronger than the official level reported to the guild. In other words, the information about the family members was false. I remember that at that time, the guild seemed to have accepted the lawsuit and was involved in the investigation. In the end, it was confirmed that this matter was just a rumor. Leafia tilted her head. Moreover, Ishta used this as an excuse to bite back at the clans and even the guild that brought up the accusation and demanded a huge fine. After that, she annihilated all the hostile family members and sent all the overgods back to the heavens. This matter caused a huge commotion at that time. But Belle seemed to be a little confused. What does that have to do with this matter? You still don't understand. Lord Bell. Lily sighed out loud. If Ishta's family members have mysterious means to increase the power of their members, then this explanation makes perfect sense. Ishta's family members did not hide the level of their family members and did not lie about the information of their family members. However, Ishta's family members had mysterious means to increase the power of their members. During battle, they could display greater power than their actual level, which was why it gave others the impression that they were lying about the information. Thinking of this, everyone felt that this explanation was very reasonable. It's one thing for Master Noah to have such a method, but even the other spawn tribes have similar methods? Lily asked in a disappointed manner. Could it be that it's so easy to change levels? The girls of Loki's family laughed bitterly. Of course, that was impossible. Otherwise, there was no need to be so surprised. In fact, even Noah did not expect that other than himself, there was someone else who had such means. The scene of the Volpera girl sitting in the box kept floating in his mind, making Noah fall into deep thought. Seeing Noah like this, AIC asked softly. What are you thinking about? Hearing this, Noah suddenly smiled and said such a sentence that stunned everyone. I'm thinking if I should really find time to go to Happy Street. Chapter 1991. The cold night wind began to blow through the earth. The white walls and giant towers that reached the sky silently exuded a solemn atmosphere. In the night, countless magic stone lamps illuminated the streets like stars, making the entire labyrinth city Aurali as lively and noisy as ever. In a corner of the bustling labyrinth city, there was a street with a somewhat different atmosphere from the rest of the place. This street was lively as well. However, the liveliness had a kind of atmosphere that made people feel hot all over. There, the buildings were like hotels, and they were filled with people. There, the color of the magic stone lamps were very ambiguous peach-colored, making people's emotions involuntarily rise. Over there were many women wearing very bold evening gowns that exposed their entire backs and waists. They were all wearing coquettish and heavy makeup. There, the men all had a somewhat wretched smile on their faces, holding hands with scantily clad women, walking into the surrounding buildings very intimately. Under such circumstances, the whole street was filled with a charming atmosphere. People would unknowingly be led by the nose by the atmosphere, walking towards a depraved but unforgettable road. Here was Happy Street. Almost all the buildings here were brothels. Almost all the women here were prostitutes. The men were here to flirt with women. The women were here to compete with one another in terms of beauty. There was no doubt that this was a place where decent people would never come. However, this was the territory of Ishta's clan. The base camp of Ishta's clan was in the deepest part of Happy Street. It was a magnificent and beautiful palace. At this moment, on the top floor of the magnificent and beautiful palace, outside an open-air balcony, there was a figure. It was not an exaggeration to say that she was a woman with 1,000 charms. The woman had a gorgeous crown-like crown, and her body was also full of jewelry. She looked like a noble woman, giving people a feeling that she was born in a very luxurious family. However, this mature woman only wore a belt that could not be called clothes at all, a waistcloth and a thin cloth belt that covered her full upper body. The amount of skin exposed to the air was shocking. Her figure was slender, and the curves of her body were perfect to the extreme. Her appearance was outstanding, and could be called as beautiful as a fairy. His brown skin had an indescribable wildness. There was a choking sweet perfume lingering on her body. This person was the master god of Ishta's clan. The leader of the happy street, the goddess of beauty Ishta. However, this beautiful goddess kept looking at the direction of the Tower of Babel. Her eyes were filled with dark emotions that even mortals could not understand. That emotion was called jealousy. What right do you have to be so high and mighty while I have to be looked down upon by you in such a small corner? Ishta stared at the top of the towering Tower of Babel with her sharp eyes. The words she uttered were filled with heart-palpitating hatred. In what way am I inferior to you? Undoubtedly, they were both beauties, but Freya was much more famous than Ishta. Undoubtedly, they were both charming, but no one thought that Ishta was prettier than Freya. In addition, Freya's clan was much stronger than Ishta's clan. All these advantages made Ishta's heart filled with unparalleled jealousy and hatred. Sooner or later, I will drag you down from there. After leaving this sentence, Ishta withdrew her gaze. She raised the pipe in her hand, took a puff, and then exhaled a thick cloud of smoke. At this time, a young man came in from outside and reported to Ishta respectfully. Lady Ishta, Lady Friuli, and the others are back. Back? Ishta didn't even turn her head. She lay on a chair on the open-air balcony and said casually. Friuli, that idiot, probably won't report anything to me. So, let Aisha come over. Yes. The young man retreated. Not long after, Aisha walked into the open-air balcony with her slender and tall legs. She didn't lose her elegance and didn't care about trifles. As soon as she came in, Aisha said directly. We failed. Really? Ishta still looked indifferent as if she didn't care about the result at all, but her slightly narrowed eyes looked up and stared at Aisha. What's the reason? An unexpected person appeared, Aisha said faintly. We ran into a level 1 adventurer from Loki's clan. A level 1 adventurer from Loki's clan. Ishta raised her eyebrows and almost immediately understood. Could it be the swordswoman? Yes, Aisha replied concisely. Then, that ugly monster Friuli went berserk and made all of Freya's clan run away. That toad girl is really a person who can't do anything right. If it weren't for her LV5 ability value, I would have kicked her out. Ishta snorted. Forget it, it's just a group of members who can't show up in front of Freya's clan. It's not a big deal if they don't stay, as long as they can disrupt Freya's clan's mission. The reason why the battle horse of Ishta's clan appeared on the 18th floor, and even the LV5 leader was sent there, was because Ishta received news that Freya's clan seemed to be on the move. They gathered a lot of members and entered the underground city. Although she didn't know the purpose of Freya's clan, since they gathered a lot of members, and almost all of them were adventurers above LV3, it was definitely not a simple mission. When she heard this news, Ishta didn't hesitate to send out the elites of her clan. Her purpose was to disrupt Freya's clan's mission and make them go for wool but come home shorn. In order to suppress Freya, Ishta really put in a lot of effort. Don't worry about the trash of Freya's clan. Ishta concluded with this sentence and then changed the topic. However, Freeney shouldn't have done anything to the swordswoman, right? If something happened to the swordswoman, then Loki's clan will definitely fight us to the death. Only this must be avoided. Fortunately, Freeney didn't take down the swordswoman. The strength of the female swordsman is indeed quite amazing. Even Freeney who leveled up couldn't do anything to her. Aisha narrowed her eyes. In the end, if it wasn't for the tyrant, I'm afraid that the battle wouldn't have ended so well. The tyrant. Ishta finally raised her head, straightened her body, and looked at Aisha. The tyrant who rejected Freya's advances has also appeared. Aisha nodded. Suddenly, the corner of Ishta's mouth slowly rose into an arc that made people's hearts beat faster. Aisha. Ishta asked this sentence casually. In your opinion, what do you think of the tyrant? Flawless. Aisha gave the highest evaluation in her life without any hesitation. There's no doubt about his strength. His personality is calm yet domineering. He's without a doubt the most outstanding man I've ever seen in my life. I can understand why the beauty Freya couldn't help but woo him in public. Even after being rejected, she still pursued him relentlessly. Is that so? Ishta nodded with satisfaction, and the smile on her face became more and more charming. If the powerful man who can resist Freya's charm and the beauty's proposal is won over by our Ishta clan, how much do you think Freya will be stimulated? I don't know how much that goddess will be stimulated. Aisha closed her eyes. I only know that even Freya's clan and Loki's clan coveted the man, but they couldn't get him. No matter what, it won't be so easy to win him over. How do you know if you don't try? Ishta's eyes were filled with endless ambition. Because he is a good man, there is a sense of accomplishment when you conquer him, right? I don't disagree with this statement. Aisha's mouth also rose. But, what do you plan to do? Ishta didn't answer Aisha's question. When she thought about what kind of expression Freya's face would show when she brought the man in front of her, Ishta felt hot all over. No matter what, that man will be mine, definitely. Chapter 1992. As night fell on the surface, so did the 18th floor of the underground city. Of course, the night on the 18th floor of the underground city was not truly night. It was just that the crystals that emitted light dimmed. The crystals that provided sunlight on the 18th floor were sometimes bright and sometimes dim, making this safe floor also have day and night. Of course, the time of day and night on the 18th floor was different from the surface, but the difference was not that big. Therefore, even if there was a slight difference in time, it was not a big deal. However, if monsters suddenly attacked at night, it was almost no different from the surface. It was an extremely dangerous thing. Therefore, adventurers were not willing to camp in the wild. They were afraid that they would be attacked by monsters unknowingly and die in their sleep. Apart from those adventurers with great abilities or large groups of adventurers. At the end of the grassland not far from the entrance of the 17th and 18th floors, a bonfire was burning slowly in front of a forest. Tiona, Tiony, and Leafia were gathered around a bonfire and chatting. Bale and Lily were setting up tents. It seemed that they were really preparing to camp with the girls of Loki's clan. It was a pity that Tiona and Tiony kept complaining about sleeping with them, but Noah vetoed it in the end. Although the 7 of them could only share one tent, Noah made a prompt decision and directly gave the order. The boys and girls took turns to rest. When one party rested, the other party was responsible for keeping watch at night to avoid being attacked by monsters. Tiona and Tiony, the open Amazon sisters, were the most reluctant about this, but Rafia and Bale were both relieved. It would be too difficult for this pair of innocent men and women to sleep in the same tent with the opposite sex. After the basic rules were set, everyone moved here and began to prepare to camp. As they were borrowing someone else's tent, Bale and Lily took the initiative to set up their tents, while Noah went to the river to get water for everyone. Rafia, who was chatting around the bonfire, turned her gaze to the entrance of the forest from time to time, faintly showing some worry in her eyes. What's wrong, Rafia? Leafia. Tiona immediately giggled. Are you worried about little brother? Of course not. Rafia's ears trembled, and she was a little embarrassed and angry. I'm worried about Miss Ace. Is it Ace? Tioni immediately turned his head, looking towards the entrance of the forest as well. It is indeed a little worrying. Taking a closer look, at the entrance of the forest, Aic's back was facing the crowd. Her head was raised and she was looking at the dark forest. Her beautiful blonde hair swayed in the wind. It was as beautiful as a painting, attracting Bale's attention and peeking at her many times. Those who didn't know better would think that Aic was in a daze. However, the young ladies of the Loki clan who knew AIC well understood that she was in low spirits. It must be because of that toad girl, Tiona said hatefully. After the fight with that toad girl, AIC has been like this, listless. That's not surprising. Tiorn sighed. AIC has always been pursuing strength. It was not easy for her to rise to LV6, but she couldn't even win against a LV5. Even if the other party used some means to increase her strength, she should still feel resentful, right? Miss Ace shouldn't be so stubborn, right? Rafia seemed to be really worried. Why don't we go and comfort Miss Ace? Comfort. Tiona was a little distressed. But I'm not good at comforting people. It would be good if Riveria was here. Tioni shrugged. Although Riveria is not very good at comforting people, at least when facing Riveria, AIC can't help but open up and talk to her. Then what should we do? Rafia began to feel anxious. I can't just leave Miss Ace like that. Tiona and Tioni both nodded. They also couldn't just leave AIC alone. Just when the three clumsy little girls didn't know what to do, a voice barged in. What can't be left alone? Hearing this voice, the young ladies were startled at first, then they all turned their heads and looked towards the source of the voice. Noah, who was holding a wooden cup filled with water, was walking over slowly with a puzzled look on his face. Why do all of you look like you've lost a wallet, but don't know if you should go and find it? The three young ladies ignored Noah's ridicule and stared blankly at Noah. Then, their eyes lit up. Looks like there's no need to look anymore. Tioni smiled. The best comforter has come knocking on our door. Comforter. Noah was stunned. What and what? Ignoring Noah's shock, the twin Amazon sisters stood up and pushed Noah's back at the same time. They pushed Noah in the direction of AIC, and said so as they pushed. All right, don't worry about that kind of small matter, little brother. Let's go and have a chat with AIC. Chat with AIC. Noah immediately understood. Looking at AIC, who was standing at the entrance of the forest in a daze, Noah smiled helplessly. That girl, is it so easy to take things too hard? With that said, Noah did not resist Tioni's strength, and under the twin sisters' push, he walked towards AIC. Rafia hurriedly followed behind. Baal and Lily had just finished setting up their tents. They looked at each other and quietly followed after them. Not long after, the group all came to AIC's side. AIC seemed to have sensed the movement and turned her head, her gem-like eyes turning to look at the group. Her beautiful eyes sparkled like stars in the night sky, and Rafia and Baal were almost stunned by her beauty. Everyone. AIC looked at the group that came to her in a daze and asked hesitantly. What's wrong? No. Nothing. Rafia hurriedly said. It's just that Mr. Noah seems to have something to say to Miss AIC. AIC blinked and looked at Noah. Under AIC's gaze, Noah was speechless. Do your best, Tioni, and Tioni muttered softly behind Noah's back, causing Noah to almost lose his temper. Noah sighed and looked at AIC. Are you still thinking about what happened during the day? Under Noah's gaze, AIC lowered her head and muttered softly like a child who had done something wrong. I'm just thinking about what that power is. Of course, she was not referring to Frey's power, but the mysterious method that allowed Frey's strength to increase greatly. Evidently, after seeing that method, AIC began to subconsciously think about it again. She wondered if she could also increase her strength like that. Actually, I don't really understand. Noah looked straight at AIC. Why are you so obsessed with increasing your strength? AIC fell silent. It wasn't just AIC. Even Tioni, and Rafia fell silent, causing Belle and Lily to be confused. That was what Tiona had said. Actually, I've always had this thought. Tiona seemed to want to say it out loud. I see, why do you only want to become stronger? Tiona and Raphael looked at AIC, as if they were also curious about this question. It seemed that even among Loki's family, not many knew why AIC was so obsessed with obtaining power. It was possible that no one knew the reason. AIC lowered her head as if she wanted to avoid everyone's gaze. After a while, she lowered her head and said, I just want to become stronger. This reason was as good as not saying anything. Because if she really wanted to become stronger, she wouldn't have displayed this level of obsession. There must be some secret in AIC's heart. It was this secret that made this young lady pursue power. Tiona, and Raphael felt extremely complicated when they thought about the secret in AIC's heart that drove her to pursue power that they didn't know about. Noah also fell silent for a while. After a while, he lifted his head and said plainly, Do you know about fairies? When these words came out of Noah's mouth, AIC's expression changed for the first time. Chapter 1993. Fairies. Together with the elves, they were known as the representative magical races of the lower realm. However, compared to the elves, fairies were more legendary. This was because the number of fairies was not only much less than other races, but they had always been a very mysterious and magical race. They were known as the most beloved children of the gods, and also known as the avatars of the gods. If the gods were perfect beings, then the fairies were just below the gods. Therefore, the fairies were known as the race closest to the gods, and their potential far exceeded that of other races. As a magical race, it was natural that fairies were born with the talent to use magic. Even without grace, they could still use magic. However, the fairies were not only proud of their talent in magic. Fairies could often cause miracles. To put it in simpler terms, almost all of the immortals were a race that possessed a mysterious ability to develop. In this world, there were many legends and stories where fairies appeared. Sometimes, they would guide the existence of heroes, allowing the heroes to achieve fame. Sometimes, they would lend a helping hand to the heroes, helping them to achieve their mission. Sometimes, they would provide humans with magic, giving them great power. Sometimes, they would give humans powerful weapons, giving them tools to overcome difficulties and defeat evil. In fact, some immortals would even turn their bodies into weapons to accompany the heroes throughout their lives. They would conquer the north and the south, leaving behind an illustrious reputation. In the era when the gods had not yet descended to the lower realm, and when humans were just a poor race, the power of fairies was almost inseparable from the appearance of human heroes, making great contributions. Since the gods descended to the lower realm, the races began to communicate with each other, and obtained the power called God's grace. The miracles caused by the fairies, who were once known as legends, were gradually replaced by ability points. They were originally a very mysterious race, and people's demand for them had decreased. Naturally, the fairies appeared less and less, and their legendary and mysterious nature became more and more. At least, in Eulalie, there were almost no fairies as members of the clan. However, it was not that fairies did not exist in Eulalie. Not to mention the other fairies, the goblins of the fairies often appeared in Eulalie's life. They looked very similar to the old man. Although they did not have great strength, they could make precious metals and gems. They had a pair of skillful hands and had made many famous weapons and props. As for the immortal spirits other than goblins, such as fire spirits, water spirits, wind spirits, thunder spirits, light spirits, and so on, they had almost become legends and were rarely seen. Therefore, to people, immortals were still a very legendary race. However, for Noah, who had been to the world of the elven messenger's sword dance, fairies were not mysterious existences. This was because the immortal spirits of this world and the elves of that world were very similar in nature. It could be seen from the name. Earth spirit, water spirit, wind spirit, fire spirit, light spirit, thunder spirit, etc. These immortals were just like the elves in the elemental spirit world. They could be said to be the embodiment of the elements. Otherwise, there wouldn't be examples of immortal spirits being able to transform themselves into weapons. Therefore, in this world, beings like Ashtar and Athena should be called fairies rather than fairies. Under such circumstances, Noah smiled faintly. Actually, I have formed a contract with a fairy. Ais's gem-like eyes immediately widened. Formed a contract with a fairy. Baal and Lily sucked in a breath of cold air. Tiona, Tione, and Lephia exchanged glances with each other. Then, Lephia said weakly. The so-called contract is, you should have heard of it, right? Noah shrugged. A mysterious fairy was moved by a hero and decided to help the hero in battle. She transformed herself into a weapon and went through all difficulties for the hero. Isn't this a very common plot in stories? Noah raised one of his hands and stroked the elven mark on the back of his hand. Thus, I made a contract with such an immortal and made her my sword. The initial mark on the back of my hand is the proof of my contract with her. Hearing this, everyone turned to Noah's hand and looked at the elven mark on the back of Noah's hand. So, Leader has a fairy companion as a weapon. Baal looked at Noah with admiration. Indeed, Leader is an amazing hero. Is that so? Noah said indifferently. But, if you know the reason why I formed a contract with Ashtar, with a fairy, then perhaps you won't think so. Everyone was stunned. Noah did not care about the others. Instead, he looked straight at Aic and said something to her surprise. The reason I formed a contract with that fairy is very simple. It's not because I'm a hero, nor is it because she wants to help me. It's because I'm the only one who can withstand her curse. Curse? Aic was completely stunned. That's right, a curse. Noah laughed bitterly. In the past, the fairy that formed a contract with me had a contractor who lent his power to her and helped her save a continent. But because her power was too strong, a weak human had to pay a price if he wanted to use her power. The price was his life. Wah! Everyone almost exclaimed. However, Noah didn't mind it and continued speaking. And the fairy that formed a contract with me didn't know about this at the beginning. When her contractor lost his life because of her own curse, it was too late for regrets. So, she sealed herself in a sword and swore to never become someone's sword again. Noah said softly. The reason was because she didn't want her power to be used to harm others and cause them to lose their lives. At this moment, everyone present fell silent. Only Lily's expression changed slightly and she spoke anxiously. Then Sir Noah formed a contract with that fairy. Doesn't that mean, don't worry, I'm fine? I just said that I can withstand this curse. My body is born with a special constitution. No matter what kind of curse it is, it has no effect on me. Noah suddenly smiled. That's why I got the sword. Lily heaved a sigh of relief. As for the others, they couldn't help but sigh. This person in front of them really gave them one surprise after another. He had endless tricks up his sleeve. Even the fairy looked at him in a new light and became his weapon. That was a treatment that only legendary heroes had. Looking at the looks of admiration on everyone's faces, Noah shook his head. I'm not telling you this because I want to tell you how amazing I am. Noah turned his gaze back to Ace. I want to tell you that there's nothing wrong with pursuing power, but having too much power may not be a good thing. Ace's eyes flickered fiercely. Not only my lovely contractor, but I'm also touched. Noah said very calmly. After all, I had the same problem when I was young. I had too much power, but I didn't have the ability to control it. As a result, it caused me to go berserk many times and brought a lot of trouble to the people around me. If it wasn't because the person who picked me up was a great expert, I think I would have killed the people around me with my own hands. Everyone didn't know what to say. But Ace noticed a detail in Noah's words. Picked up. Ace said, half surprised and half hesitant. Then, you. Yes. Noah said helplessly. I have no parents, so I should be considered an orphan, right? Ace immediately shut her mouth. You're digressing. Noah laughed. Anyway, I want to tell you that maybe you have a reason to pursue power. That's not wrong, but if you're too stubborn, you may not be able to achieve the result you want. Noah enunciated each and every word. What you need to strengthen is your heart, then your power. Don't get the order wrong. Ace fell into deep thought. The surroundings gradually returned to silence. An indescribable atmosphere filled the air and didn't calm down for a long time. You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.